Councillor Bull.
Well, he was. I thought he'd come back. No, wait a minute. He was a bit later going to his comfort break, wasn't he?
He's on a technical call, I think. He's trying to get his things sorted.
Give him a minute, because he was doing technical stuff while the rest of us were comfort breaking.
Councillor Bull, the meeting is now live. I'll hand you back to the, you may now start the meeting.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Central Sub-Area Planning Committee. Before consideration of today's business, I will outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public, welcome public, via Microsoft Teams, and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may choose to use their video. If the council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, I'll adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored. If the issue can't be resolved, I'll halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I will adjourn for a short period to try to re-establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I'll remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the Democratic officer will advise you. The vote will be taken by using the raise your hand function and the result announced by the Democratic Services Officer. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on each planning application in order to be able to vote. We have public speakers at the meeting today and they'll be joining the meeting by telephone. Where a member has declared a non-registerable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they'll be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the procedure for today's meeting is that members of the committee who wish to speak on an item should indicate by using the raise your hand function, which is being monitored by the Vice Chair. Any members not on the committee or unable to use the raise your hand function who wish to ask a question should indicate by typing X in the chat box. Before we start today's business, I will ask the Democratic Services Officer to ask committee members to confirm they are present and state their electoral division. Sarah.
Oh, sorry, Jackie, it's Emma.
Emma, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Chairman. I will now call your name. Please can you confirm your name and your electoral division member? Councillor Alvey.
So, Councillor Martin Alvey, representing the FIOP and the Plain Place division.
Councillor Batters.
Councillor Chris Batters, representing Llanivit Blisland division.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Malcolm Brown, St Austell, Bethel.
Thank you. Councillor Dyer.
John Dyer, Chasewater, Kenwyn and Baldew.
Councillor Fitter.
Councillor Fitter, Colin St Morgan.
Councillor Jewell.
Councillor Alan Jewell, Falmouth, Oslallic Ward.
Councillor May.
Councillor May, Penryn West.
Councillor Simmons.
Yes, Councillor John Simmons, Penryn East and Myler.
Councillor John Thomas.
Good morning, everybody. Councillor John Thomas, Lyra and Stillions Electoral Division.
Councillor Mike Thomas.
Councillor Mike Thomas, representing Helston North Division.
Councillor Tudor.
Good morning, Councillor Tudor, the Three-Milestone and Glouth Division.
Councillor Williams.
Good morning, everyone. This is Peter Williams, representing Maid, St Lucas and Carnawarrow.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, Councillor Greenslade.
Good morning, Councillor Fred Greenslade, St Dennis and Nanpin Division.
And Chairman, Councillor Bull.
Councillor Jackie Bulls, Ulster Poltaire Division.
Excuse me, Emma. I think you missed Councillor Kenny.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Kenny. Councillor Kenny.
Yeah, good morning, Joanna Kenny, Newquay Pentire.
Thank you. I can confirm that I also have the following officers: Matthew Stevenson, Group Leader; Tim Marsh, Principal Development Officer; Ben Kerno, Legal Services; and myself, Emma Code, Democratic Officer.
Thank you very much. So we move on to the agenda. Agenda item 1, are there any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I have apologies today from an electoral division member, Councillor Michael Callan.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 2, declaration of interest. Are there any declaration of interest?
I believe Councillor Alvey has an interest.
Councillor Alvey, would you like to unmute your microphone?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I have a registered interest for item 4.2 as I own property in Melville Court.
So you'll be leaving the meeting at that point, Councillor Alvey?
I will, and on the assumption that there's nothing on item 5, I'll obviously not return.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item 3, and this morning we've got 2 sets of meeting minutes to accept and approve. So the first set of minutes of the meeting held on the 17th of February 2020, and those are being looked at by you for accuracy. Do I have a proposer, please?
Proposed, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Batters. Thank you very much. Can you please confirm Democratic Services that all hands are lowered?
Thank you, Chairman. I need Councillor Batters and Councillor Fitter to lower their hands, and Councillor Dyer. Councillor Dyer to lower his hand as well. Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that all hands are lowered currently.
Thank you. Then the minutes of the meeting on the 17th of February have been proposed by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Batters. All those in favour, please raise your hand. We now have to wait while Emma just counts that.
I think I may have a problem with my raising of the hand.
Could I ask then, Councillor Thomas, which way you'll be voting?
I'm supporting.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that was a unanimous decision to vote in favour of those minutes.
Thank you very much. Could you all lower your hands, please? And perhaps the Democratic officer can confirm when those are all lowered.
Councillor Dyer, could I? Oh, thank you. All hands are lowered.
Thank you very much. We move on to the minutes of the meeting of the 16th of March, pages 1 to 41. For accuracy, do I have a proposer, please? Thank you, Councillor John Thomas. And the seconder, Councillor Alvey. Very much. Now, could we again confirm, please, Democratic officer, that all hands are lowered before the vote?
Councillor Thomas, could you lower your hand, please? Councillor Dyer, could you lower yours? Thank you. All hands are lowered.
Thank you very much. So we have a proposal to accept the meeting proposed by Councillor Thomas, seconded by Councillor Alvey. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
Is my hand appearing?
No, I don't think it is, Councillor Thomas.
Okay, my hand is here. I think there's a problem emerged. We'll cope with it.
Yes.
Can I just clarify then, Councillor Thomas, if you're voting in favour?
I am indeed.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I have counted all those voting in favour.
And is that passed unanimously?
No, Councillor Batters hasn't voted.
Ah, right. In that case,
Yeah, I wasn't present.
right. So you're abstaining, Councillor Batters, yes?
Yes,
Councillor,
yes, I am. Yes, abstaining.
And I am as well, Jackie. I'm abstaining because I didn't attend the meeting because I was in hospital.
right. Thank you. That's a very good excuse, Councillor Williams. Thank you very much. And there was no one against, given those numbers.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm then that the minutes of the meeting on the 16th of March have been carried by 13 votes in favour with none against and 2 abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask you all to lower your hand, please? And when it's confirmed that those hands are lowered, we'll move on to the main business.
Councillor Albie has his hand raised.
Right, thank you very much. We now move on to the applications for consideration under agenda item 4.1. And the first one is PA 1910894, Mrs. R. Bartow, Treslow-Veen, Perrencombe, Perranporth, Cornwall. The proposed construction of 2 detached infill dwellings, formation of 2 new vehicle access points onto Perrencombe, and alterations to existing vehicle access. Case officer is Tim Marsh, so over to you, please, Tim.
Thank you, Chairman, and good morning, everybody. I'll just share my screen now. Can everybody see the presentation screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. The key issues for this proposed development are firstly, policy considerations. Secondly, trees, ecology and drainage, which are all related. Design, scale, form and character. Archaeology, because the site is a site of former mineral activity. Residential amenity, access and parking. Flood risk, the site does fall partly within the high risk flood zone, and contamination, which is related to the previous use. So the application site is located approximately half a kilometre from the centre of Perranporth on the northern side of Perrencombe Lane, outlined here in red. This is a closer view of the site. It is heavily wooded, as you'll see in a moment from the aerial photograph. Perrencombe Court here to the north, and Treslow-Veen, the nearest neighbour, to the south, and then a line of detached properties opposite. So this is the aerial photograph. You can see it is an area of woodland that is subject to the tree preservation order, as explained in the report. The first images of the existing site plan with the trees to be removed, outlined in red here. So you can see majority of the trees to remain, the trees to be removed where the 2 dwellings are going to be constructed. This is the proposed site plan, which has been superimposed on the existing plan. So there are 3 points of access. Plot 1, which is this one here, or the southern plot, is accessed via Treslow-Veen Lane to Treslow Farm, and there's space for 2 cars and a garage. It also has a pull-in here for a further 2 vehicles, and the main access and only access onto plot 2 is from Perrencombe Lane in here, which has a garage at that level. So the roof plans, you can see there are solar PVs on the roof and terrace gardens, as well as actual garden roofs. The area is shaded in green. Just very briefly, the construction phase is the first thing to put in the tree protective fencing, then install the accesses, and then put in the piles for the steel framework substructure. The plan here shows the trees to be retained and removed. The areas of trees identified, named in green, are those that are to be retained. and then, sorry, in red are the proposed new trees. There is a slight variation from this plan following the late consultations with the tree officer to pull the proposed trees further away from the dwellings. So moving on to the proposed elevations, this is plot 1, which is a southern plot. The proposed elevation, so that's facing the stream, the northwest elevation, and you can see the steel substructs that I referred to. Proposed materials for the dwelling are pre-charred Siberian larch predominantly, with oxidized steel on the upper floor, and then you've also got some natural stone detailing as well. So the access here from Perencombe Lane, looking at the northeast elevation, that's the elevation facing plot 2 effectively. So you can see how the substructures also supports the driveway and pull-in area for that part of the scheme. The southeast elevation is the elevation facing onto Perencombe Lane. So the dotted line here is effectively the line of the lane, and then that's, you recall when I explained the site plan, the garage and access from Treslow Veen or Treslow Farm Lane here, and then so you've got the pull-in areas effectively a story higher. There are 3 levels of development. This final elevation for plot 1 is the southwest elevation, which is the elevation looking to the neighbouring dwelling, Treslow Veen. So again, you can see how Perencombe Lane is up here, and then the road wraps down to form the access here. Moving on to this plot 2, similar style. Again, the steel substructure. The northwest elevation, again, that's the elevation facing on towards the stream. The northeast elevation is the elevation that faces towards Perencombe Court, which has a large garden area separating it from the dwellings. Again, the Perencombe Lane and the substructure supporting both the driveway and the garage, as well as the dwelling itself. Southeast elevation for plot 2, that's the elevation you'll recall facing onto Perencombe Lane. And then lastly, the southwest elevation, which is the elevation facing back towards plot 1. This is a projected street view, which has been provided recently. You can see how they sit amongst the trees and how there's a sharp drop-off in levels from Perencombe Lane. This is an aerial photograph looking to the north west of the 2 dwellings. So this is plot 1 and that's plot 2. Then the proposed floor plans effectively reversed level. So the bedrooms on the lower ground floor for plot 1, and then an upper ground floor which has an additional bedroom and living area and a kitchen, and then the living area again with the roof terrace on the first floor, and a similar arrangement for plot 2. So in terms of the balance of considerations, the parish councils and third party object to this application owing to its bulk massing and design, which is considered to be out of character. The development is infill, however, under policy CL3, and although it is within an area of tree preservation order, it is partly in a high-risk flood zone and on a site of archaeological interest. The proposals have been designed to take account of these constraints. There is no defining or prevailing architectural style in the immediate locality, and the design, although unusual, is considered to comply with Local Plan Policy 12. There will be a net gain in biodiversity, as confirmed by the ecology officer, and no harm to protected species. The archaeological officers confirm there will be less than substantial harm to non-designated heritage assets subject to the standard archaeological recording condition. The proposals are constructed on an open framework, so any flooding would occur unhindered beneath them and provides flood resilience to properties located further downstream. Following revisions to include visibility displays from the 3 accesses, the highway officer now has no objection, and the various responses serve to demonstrate compliance with other relevant policies, including CLP 3, 24, 26 and 27. Although the tree officer is not fully supportive, and whilst trees and structures would be in competition for space, the proposed rooftop gardens take account of this and provide a satisfactory solution. And finally, the dwellings are sited and the windows positioned and orientated such that any potential impacts on the residential amenities of neighbouring properties would be acceptable. Just finally, members would have received an update report that was provided following receipt from the applicant of a report from the design review panel, which set out a number of observations generally supportive of the scheme, but included some suggestions which include landscape management plan, which is subject to recommended conditions set out in the update. So the application is recommended for conditional approval accordingly, as set out in the report and supplemented by the update. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Now we have no member of the public speaking in objection, but I believe we have a statement from Perranzabuloe Parish Council, which the Democratic officers will read out. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you, Chairman. The Parish Council wished for me to read a statement to say that Perranzabuloe Parish Council object on the basis that the bulk, massing and design of the two properties are out of character with the rest of the village. The people are very concerned regarding the impact on wildlife, especially birds. And at their meeting, their vote was 2 abstentions and 2 against the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move on to a speaker in support of the application, the agent, Charles Green. Do we have Mr. Green on the telephone, please?
Yes, you do.
Morning, Mr. Green. Thank you for attending. You have 3 minutes. You'll be told when 30 seconds remain, starting from now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. This application has been subject to intense scrutiny since it was validated on the 6th of January. During the course of the application, we have gained support from all of the consultees, with the exception of the Parish Council and the County Tree Officer. I attended and spoke at the meeting of the Parish Council at the time the application was originally considered. The objection is based on the perception that the bulk, massing and design of the two properties would be out of character with the rest of the village. The vote was not unanimous, with 2 abstentions and 2 against. As the planning case officer has pointed out, Perranzabuloe has no defining or prevailing architectural style. The design of these dwellings has evolved directly from the site constraints. For example, the need to place garden areas on upper decks and flat roof terraces that might benefit from the sun. The design is innovative and responds positively to its setting. Engagement with the design review panel has served to reinforce our belief that the design is appropriate for the site. Regarding development within the area TPO, although the County Tree Officer has maintained his objection to the application, he has agreed that the trees proposed for removal are of low arboricultural value, and he has accepted that the applicants have demonstrated that the development could be implemented with minimal disruption to retain trees. The Design Review Panel have supported the proposal within this TPO and provided useful feedback regarding proposals for new tree planting, which could be subject to a planning condition should this application be approved. As is clearly demonstrated from our computer-generated images, the completed development will sit comfortably within the street scene and will maintain the wooded essence of the site, even enhancing the quality of the woodland and its associated biodiversity. How many applications can truly claim such environmental and ecological benefits? Throughout Perranzabuloe, a variety of existing dwelling styles exist within the wooded valley. They coexist with mature trees, often in very close proximity, very comfortably. The proposed development will respect and emulate the existing landscape character of Perranzabuloe. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Perhaps you could stay on the line, please, Mr. Green, while we see if there are any questions. Are there any questions for the speaker, please? Vice Chairman, any hands raised?
None at the moment, Chairman.
Thank you. We'll just give it a moment.
Still none in my...
Right.
Councillor Tudor has her hand raised.
Thank you very much. Councillor Tudor, would you like to unmute your microphone?
Thank you. I would like to ask the applicant that the report states that anyone that interested in this sort of house would have it's going to attract people interested in the environment, and I wondered if there was actually any evidence to support that.
It's likely that people purchasing properties within this natural environment would want to live in such an environment and would therefore respect the environment. Obviously, there's no guarantee of that, but it's common sense. People who wouldn't want to live amongst trees and who would probably not want to buy these properties. Has that answered your question?
If I can come back. No, I'm sorry, that hasn't answered my question. I asked if you had any evidence to support that rather than for conjecture and opinion. Thanks.
Yeah, but it wasn't a statement that we had made ourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions?
Not at the moment, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Then in that case, Mr. Green, thank you very much for attending.
Councillor Tudor's hand is still raised.
Yes, thank you. Could you lower your hand, please, Councillor Tudor? Thank you. We now move on to the divisional member, Councillor Callan. Do we have Councillor Callan with us?
Sorry, Chairman. Councillor Callan has expressed his apologies. He's unable to attend the meeting today.
Thank you. Has he sent a statement?
No, he hasn't.
Right, thank you. Then we move straight on to questions of the planning officer. But first, I thank the public speaker for attending. Am I correct? I ask the public speaker now to leave the meeting. If that has.
Sarah Goodall, meeting producer. Yes, the public speaker has left the meeting.
Thank you very much. Right, we move on to questions of the planning officer. Vice Chairman, do we have questions?
At the moment, Councillor Alvey and Councillor Tudor, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
And Joanna Kenny.
Thank you. Councillor Alvey, would you like to unmute your microphone and ask your question, please?
Thank you, Chair. Tim, in your summing up, you said that the application doesn't carry the full support of the tree officer. I'm looking at the papers, page 51, towards the end of paragraph 26. It says, as this scheme is not in accordance with current government advice and fails to adhere with policy 23 of the Cornwall local plan, this cannot be supported from the horticultural perspective. So it's being objected to by the tree officer. It's not a case of it doesn't carry full support, it carries no support at all of the tree officer. Would that be correct?
Well, he certainly objects, but I think in his closing remarks he says it's feasible as such, but his concern is fundamentally that because of the proximity of the trees, it will place pressure on them to be felled or pruned. However, obviously it's a balanced judgment in terms of making a decision on the application. I think that the applicant has gone as far as they can, really, to, if the development is going to take place on the site, it's hard to see how you could do it really in a better way, and whilst accommodating the trees, bearing in mind the fact that they're providing these roof gardens and spaces from the dwellings to the proposed new and existing planting. But yes, fundamentally the tree officer objects, and that's part of the balancing exercise as to whether you consider his objection outweighs the benefits of the scheme.
Are you happy with the answer?
Well, yes, insofar as, however, he at no point does he say that it is achievable. In fact, his last paragraph puts in the conditions he would expect to see should the planning service wish to approve it, but at no point does he accept that it's feasible.
Can I come back there, please?
Yes,
he does say, he says, the bill does seem feasible with the current tree removals with minimal impact on the site as it is currently. That's his words in the, so he, I mean, that's why I said it's feasible, but he does object.
I think that's answered that. Thank you very much, Councillor Alvey. If you'd like to lower your hand. Councillor Tudor, you have a question. Would you like to unmute, please?
Thank you. I was going to ask the planning officer a similar question to Councillor Alvey, because I see that the tree officer does not approve of this plan. So I just move on then to, I wondered if, Tim, you could tell me how the plans for this development adhere to British Standard 5837.
Well, I can't really answer that in detail. It's really a question you should have asked the agent. I mean, in terms of the requirements for climate change, it's basically all we can do at the moment is make sure they comply with Part L of the building regulation.
Does that answer your question?
Sorry, you're referring to? Sorry, sorry, beg your pardon. You're referring to the tree standard, aren't you? Not the beg your pardon. Yeah. Well, insofar as they are close to the trees, then there is a shortcoming in that respect. But that doesn't make them unacceptable from a planning point of view. That's the point. We're accepting that they're not ideal in terms of the relationship with the trees, but as I said to answer to Councillor Alvey, I think that if you're going to have development on the site, then this solution is probably as good as you're going to get in terms of allowing for the trees.
Thanks, but but the development itself doesn't actually adhere to that British standard. Okay, thank you.
But that doesn't make it unacceptable from a planning point of view, only from an arboricultural point of view.
Thank you. If you'd like to lower your hand, Councillor Tudor, Councillor Kenny, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes, thank you. I was making the same point on the trees. I don't suppose there's any condition we can have that will protect the trees. I mean, that's the concern of the tree officer, that once somebody has built it, they'll start chopping down the trees because it's getting in their light, etc. That was my first question. My second question was, is there any designation on this land at all that protects it, or is it absolutely, in the middle of a village and therefore it's open for development?
Well, the protection is the tree preservation order. Other than that, no, it's not in any kind of designated area. And in my report, I explain it's considered to be consistent with the requirements of policy 3 of the local plan for rounding off. In terms of the tree, in addition to condition 5 as recommended, which is the standard agricultural method statement tree protection requirement, in the light of the design review panel comments in the update, I referred to the need for a landscaping plan. So I think the combination of it being within the area tree preservation order means that retained and new trees will afford that protection, but you've also got the protection through the provision of the landscape management plan and the need to maintain the site in accordance with the provisions of that plan once it's agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. If you would like to lower your hand. Vice Chairman, I've got Councillors Dyer, Batters and Fitter, is that correct?
Agreed, Chairman, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Dyer, would you like to unmute your microphone and ask your question, please? Councillor Dyer, can you?
I am here. The other form of protection in this area, and I'm hoping Tim can clear it for me, the railway from Chasewater to Newquay is a preserved area for development. Can you tell me that the railway line here on the edge of this plot is preserved from any development in case somebody wants to reinstate the railway one day?
I wasn't aware that it was, to be brutally honest with you. I'm looking at the plan now. There's no indication of that. So, and there's certainly no policy that's affording that protection. I mean,
there was a policy passed by Carrick District Council to preserve the line in its entirety from development, so that the bed could be, the track bed could be put down.
But I don't think I mean, Perencombe Lane, the railway doesn't come near the site. The railway runs there's a line that runs to the east of the site through, isn't there? I mean, I don't understand.
The top edge.
But the site doesn't affect the railway at all. I mean, the previous activity was mining activity, and it's a very steeply sloping site down to the stream, so it's not affecting the railway.
Right, good, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dyer. If you'd like to lower your hand. Councillor Batters, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question was partly covered by Councillor Kenny a few moments ago, because it concerned me somewhat that with so many trees around these houses and on private land, as we well know, trees do need trimming on occasions, because at the very least reason being for the reception of Sky television. But of course, there wouldn't be any method of monitoring this at all, would there? So in years to come, they could possibly trim those trees quite severely to protect vision, light, and TV reception, I take it, because it wouldn't be monitored, would it?
Well, that wouldn't be monitored, but because it's in an area preservation order, they will require consent in order to carry out any significant works to those trees. And also, as I explained, as part of this permission, in light of the design review panel's comments, there's a requirement now for a landscaping scheme and planting. They need to maintain it in accordance with that scheme, which can and would include details of how you maintain existing trees.
Yeah, fine. I think I've got the answer I wanted to hear in some respects, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Batters, if you'd like to lower your hand. Councillor Fitter, would you like to unmute, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Marsh, can you tell me, please, do you have any, it may be in the report, I can't see it, but do we have to have the age of the woodland?
I don't have the details of it, but it's the predominantly sycamores. It's not ancient woodland. As I said earlier on, the site was previously a mineral mining activity site. So unfortunately, I can't give the precise date, but it's not ancient woodland.
No, but okay, sir. I was hoping if we could get some estimation of when the informal industrial use ceased and the woodland developed. But can I ask you one further question in your knowledge as a planning officer? That all the tree, the whole site is protected under a tree preservation order. Is that correct, sir? Yes,
part of the wider Perencombe Lane area tree preservation order. But it's important to point out that whilst that's the case, they are predominantly sycamores and mostly grade C, certainly the trees that have been removed. And it's worth looking at the comments that the design and review panel made on that in the update. Yeah, I'm conscious of more conscious really of the report of the tree officer, and quite rightly, a tree is a tree. You know, if it nods and moves like a cow, it's a cow, and this is a tree. But what I was going to say to you, sir, and to ask the question, that am I correct in saying that as things stand at the moment, anybody who wishes to remove trees from that site would have to apply to the appropriate authority and provide evidence as to why they need to remove that tree? Is that correct, sir, at this moment in time? Yeah, because it's an area tree preservation order, so it requires that, and this application provides that explanation in this case.
And then, given once again your knowledge as a planning officer, at the moment, if we look at the site as it is, if an application came in to remove a tree, the judgment will be made basically on what harm would it really cause to the forest by removing that tree to the other trees around it. There is no structure that has to be taken into consideration. So any application to remove a tree will be based purely and simply on the value of those trees in that woodland.
In that context, but obviously we're looking at a planning application, but that's right in terms of just work to the trees.
Right.
Whilst you've been talking, I've looked up on the heritage impact assessment. It's the previous mining activity ceased in about 1907, I think. So that will give you an idea of how old the trees are.
Sort of 100 years max.
Yeah, and the designation, the TPO was made in 1991.
91. Oh goodness, that's quite a long time ago. Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fitter. If you'd like to lower your hand, I've now got Councillor May. Would you like to unmute, please, Councillor May?
That is the only hand at the moment, Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
And Councillor Thomas. I can't raise my hand, so I'm raising my hand here.
Oh, right, Councillor Thomas. Thank you for speaking up.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wondered if the planning officer had any photos of any of the properties that were on either side of this piece of land that he could show us, because at the end of the day, this is quite an extraordinary application in design. So perhaps he might have something that he could show us.
What I can do, it'll take me just a moment, is I can look up on Google Street View. That I don't have any photographs to hand, unfortunately. But that shouldn't take very long. It seems to be working. So just
Happy for him to come back, Chairman.
Well, Let's let Tim take a look a minute.
Yeah, it seems to be working quite well. So.
Councillor Bull, it's Sarah Goodall here, meeting producer. Perhaps Councillor Mike Thomas would like to put an X in the chat box if he wishes to ask a question, as his raise hand function isn't working.
Yes, thank you.
I don't think my chat box is as well. I'll try that. I know what's happened. I'll try. Is that working now? Has that gone through? Has that X gone through?
Not at the moment.
No. I've got an idea what's happened. It's to do with passwords, but I won't bore you what's happened.
Okay, Mike, thank you.
I've brought up the Google Street View. Can you see that, Councillor May?
Yep.
Yes, I can.
So this is going back up away from the site. The site's behind me, but so you could, hopefully that'll give you some idea. Is that sufficient, Councillor May?
Yes, thank you, Tim.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to lower your hand, Councillor Mayo, I think you have, then it's Councillor Thomas, Councillor Mike Thomas.
Yes, my question is for Tim, but it may be for Emma to answer. It's regarding your liaison and consultation with Perenzabulo Parish Council. Can somebody confirm the number on that council, because there are only 4 people who voted, 2 abstentions and 2 against. For interest of democracy, I'd like to know how many members actually are on that council.
I was going to ask that question as well, Tim. Does that mean that the rest voted for? Do we know?
I'm afraid I don't know, Chairman.
Well, that's a pity. That's
no, Chairman, I don't know either. No, the report just says 2 abstentions and 2 against.
Oh, what a pity. That's quite pertinent information. They could have let us out.
It is a small number of people, isn't it? I'm sure there must be more than 4 people on that council.
Yes, my assumption would be that means the rest vote. Well, no, it wouldn't have been carried as an objection.
I mean, I could try and look on the minutes for there. That will take me a little while. But yeah. Do you want me to do that?
Do you want to do that, Councillor Thomas, or?
Well, I think it is important, as the division member isn't present, and we are looking at representation from the local community, and there are only 2 people against it. I'm a little bit confused in the sense as to what the concerns are from the division member and the parish council, other than what's stated in the agenda.
Yes, I felt the same. If it's something, do you think you can access reasonably quickly, Tim?
I'm just looking at their website now, trying to go through their meetings and agendas. I can't. What meeting it would have gone to? I guess it would have been January. I need to look at the date of their submission. Hang on. April.
I think it's worth just taking a moment.
Yeah,
it is very strange. While Tim's doing that, Vice Chairman, we have some more questions. Hands raised.
Can I just interrupt?
Yes.
Yeah, just to say, I've just quickly checked with the parish council. There's 6 members on their planning committee.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
2 and 2 then.
And only 4 were there, presumably.
So there's only 4 votes recorded, yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay, that answers the question then. Yeah.
That answers it. Thank you, Tim. Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do we have any more questions?
Yes, Chairman. John Simmons and Councillor John Dyer at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Simmons, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Tim, you just said that the TPO order was made around or after 1991. There are trees to be felled and new ones planted, but the new ones planted, would they still come under that TPO or would they be outside of that?
They have to reach a certain size before they afforded that protection, but in time they would do, yes.
And they would automatically fall within those TPOs, or would they have to make another TPO?
No, they're within the area tree preservation order. So once they'd reached the requisite level of maturity, they would do.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to lower your hand, Councillor Simmons. Councillor Dyer, would you like to unmute and ask your question, please? Can you hear us all right, Councillor Dyer?
Councillor Dyer, Sarah Goodall, meeting producer. Can you unmute your microphone, please, Councillor Dyer?
Is that better?
That's better, thank you, Councillor Dyer. You've got another question?
Right, the question is, the trees that are to be planted, I hope to goodness they won't be sycamore trees, who I'm afraid I don't have a very high opinion of sycamore trees.
The condition will enable us to control the species of trees, and I would very much envisage liaising with the tree officer in discharging that condition.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Dyer?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. If you right, Vice Chairman, would you like to confirm that there are no further hands raised?
I can confirm that, Chairman. Could I ask a question, please?
Please do.
I'm assuming that if there is a condition for landscaping this this area when it's completed, that will stand for a number of years and has to be adhered to. So whatever is planted will be protected in that way. Is that true?
That's correct, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. No further questions, then we move into debate. Would those who wish to speak please like to raise their hands?
Councillor Fitter, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Fitter, would you like to unmute, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I think that the damning indictment to this application, if there is such a damning indictment, is the report of the tree officer, who has tried to be exceptionally fair with the applicant, but despite his best efforts, he unfortunately makes the case that this application is not fit for purpose at this location. Tim very kindly read out a paragraph in his report, but it was what was said afterwards I think is important, and it said the bill does seem feasible with current tree removals note, with minimum impact the site as it is currently. However, and this is a bit, the placing of a dwellings will raise numerous clearable, foreseeable future conflict with the green environment of retained trees. The Green Report has failed to comment or migrate these obvious future conflicts satisfactorily. In actuality, the proposed planting scheme will indeed exacerbate these issues long term. And it is, of course, because the trees will continue to grow and their crown spread will be such that they will have a dominating effect upon the actual development itself unless steps are taken to curb that growth, which would be in contrast with the actual preservation order on the actual site. As we know, and Tim has said, that before any tree is removed there at the moment, it has to be carefully considered as to what harm it's doing by being there. And if it isn't creating any harm, then no license would be given to fell that tree. But we are going to have a position where if this permission does go ahead, then the applicant in 10 years' time can well come back and apply for applications to remove trees because they're having a harmful effect upon their living environment. And this is something that we permitted by giving the planning permission. So I suggest, in actual fact, it will be very difficult really for any tree officer or any planning officer to refuse any request to remove trees that are causing a problem to their living conditions. So by allowing this planning application to go forward, we are going to present problems in the future for this tree preservation order in this site. And the other thing that does concern me is the vast amount of engineering that is going to have to take place to provide this development. And I'm not quite sure, given that it's providing 2 houses only, just 2 houses, there's a mass amount of engineering. And I just feel unhappy and uncomfortable that we should have that degree of engineering within a site which has this tree preservation order on it. And it seems as though the trees have been growing for approximately 100 years and growing and developing and growing and developing. A forest can take 2 centuries before it becomes fully intact. As regards to Councillor Dyer's reaction to sycamore, I have to say, in actual fact, is sycamore, you know, some people call it a weed, but in actual fact, it is a tree. It grows like a tree, it has leaves like a tree, and there's nothing wrong with sycamores. But I will leave it at that. But at this moment in time, Madam Chairman, unless somebody comes up with some frightfully ingenious reason why I should be persuaded to support this, I will not be supporting this application as set out. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Fitter. I've got Councillor Tudor next.
Confirmed.
Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Thank you. I want to say that I agree with everything that Councillor Fitter just said. Just a couple of points. This is the 3rd time that I've seen on a planning applications come before us a statement that the people that would be interested in buying these houses and living in them would be interested in cultivating and retraining the trees there, but there's never been any evidence to support that statement, so I'm going to completely disregard that. I find it actually quite extraordinary that, you know, when the Cornwall Council declared a climate emergency, was it January 2019, we want to become carbon neutral by 2030, Cornwall planning a forest for Cornwall, planting tens of thousands of trees, you know, our new climate change development plan, DPD, is going out for a second consultation later in the summer. And yet here we are nitpicking about whether or not to give planning approval to a development that actually means the destruction of TPO trees. So, you know, the only thing we have in our arsenal at the moment with planning decision to protect trees are the reports from tree officers, which I think should be given absolute priority at this time, and the British Standard 5837, which the tree officer has said this development does not adhere to. Now, British Standard 5837 is there to assist anyone concerned with trees in relation to construction to form a balanced judgment. So I am going to use it to help me form my judgment. There's no way that I could support this scheme, this development as set out, because of the destruction of trees, which seems to fly in the face of everything the council's trying to achieve at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Tudor. Vice Chairman, I've just got Councillor Kenny's hand up. Is that with you? Same with you?
I can confirm that, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Like everybody else, we're all uncomfortable about the trees. My problem is that effectively the report is saying something might happen in the future. which might damage the trees. I just don't think that's enough to base a refusal on. I think if it went to appeal, they would say, no, you can't make a judgment on what might happen in the future. So regretfully, I think I can see the way the meeting is going, but I won't be able to support a refusal.
Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. I can see Councillor Jewell's hand up.
Yes.
Would you like to unmute, please, Councillor Jewell?
Yeah, thank you very much, Committee Chairman. I think most of it has been said. You know, obviously Joanne's got her view, but first and foremost, this is, you know, a tree covered site, and those trees have been there over 100 years. The tree preservation order has been in for quite a while. For nearly 30 years. So the first and foremost, if this applicant wanted to put houses on this site, he must have realised if he didn't get support of the tree officer, it's a non-starter, and it's clearly been said by the previous speakers that there's no support from the tree officer, so I cannot support this. And I think, you know, the time has come to propose a refusal on the grounds of policy 23 of the Cornwall local plan, because it clearly says there this cannot be supported from an agricultural perspective. Thank you.
I'm just writing that down a minute, Councillor Jewell. So you are making that proposal, Councillor Jewell. You said the time has come. Can we?
Yeah, I think it's a damning report, as Councillor Fitter said, Councillor Tudor. You know, you're removing trees that are over 100 years old, whether or not they're signals, irrespective, and it's in breach of policy 23 of the Cornwall local plan.
Thank you very much. I have Councillor Tudor's hand has gone up. Do you wish to second that, Councillor Tudor?
Yes, I do.
Do you wish to?
My hand up.
Yeah. Do you wish to speak again?
No, I just would like to second Councillor Jill's proposal.
Right. I will go to the planning officer, senior officer, in just a moment. I see I've got Councillor Fitter's hand up. Councillor Fitter, do you wish to speak again?
Councillor Thomas.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Thomas. Let's go to Councillor Thomas first, because otherwise you're going to keep being last, aren't you?
Yeah, I do apologise. But once this application is closed, I will come out and come back into Teams to see if I can get my hand back.
Being a voice in the wilderness.
Yes, a voice in the wilderness in the distant west. I'd like to agree with what Councillor Kenny has said. I took a great interest in this application when it first came before us and read all the details. And I felt that if it came to a committee in this way, I would listen intently, and it could influence my decision, which it has. And I fully support the application. I can fully see where we're at in terms of the forestry officer. But the forestry officer is a consultee, as I understand it, to the planning department. And I think that the points made on page 45, where it says that the point 8 are covered, that there has been sufficient address of the issue of trees, which is an emotional issue today. But in terms of how this can enhance the area, I think there are many positives to it. And to be quite honest, I don't think. And I take Councillor Tudor's point about people having making decisions of where they live. Can you be really sure that someone would want to live like in a place like this? Well, quite honestly, I think if we can put plenty of protection on that area, and there is with TPOs, I can't imagine anybody, unless they really love trees, would want to live in that area for some of the reasons Councillor Batt has indicated in terms of access to sky. So I will be supporting this, and I'm prepared to propose accepting this as set out.
If Councillor Thomas, if the proposal to refuse fails, then I will come to you.
Thank you.
All right. You're making some good policy points there. Right. So thank you for that. I can't ask you to lower your hand because you haven't got one to lower. But Councillor Fitter, you've still got your hand up. Did you wish to speak again?
Yes, I just wanted to say, Madam, in support of Councillor Jewell and Councillor Tudor, that of course, Senator, fact is, this is contrary. I mean, to say it's not just one policy that we're hanging our hat on this case, and I really think that we have to look at the other policies, and it's contrary, I believe, to policy 25 of the Cornwall Local Plan, green infrastructure, and indeed it's contrary to policy 24 of its historical environment. All of them make cases where there's in those policies where this sort of development, this sort of location would not be acceptable. So I just pass that on to Councillor Tudor and Councillor Jewell for their consideration. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I will go to the planning officer. If the Vice Chair, would you confirm that there are no further hands raised? Councillor Fitter, could you lower your hand, please?
I can confirm clean slate at the moment.
Thank you very much. Then can I go to Matt Stevenson, please, for comments on the points that have been made, the proposal for refusal on policy 23, 25, 24. I can't quite see myself, but perhaps you would like to clarify, please, Matt. The actual proposal, apology, was on policy 23. The points that have been introduced further by Councillor Jewell were 24 and 25.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think it'd be worthwhile the proposer clarifying what he considers to be the harm. Is he saying that the harm's coming from the clearance of the trees that's actually in the proposal, or is the harm coming from the potential future loss of trees from the conflict? Or is it both?
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Jewell then. Would you like to unmute Councillor Jewell?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything in that report by the tree officer. It's the loss of trees and the management of the trees in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading the report and he doesn't seem to be saying that the loss of trees in the actual proposal would be harmful. He seems to be more focusing on the future conflict, particularly with the newly planted trees.
Right, so what are you suggesting, please?
Well, sorry, just the proposer said that the tree officer was objecting on the grounds of both, when he doesn't appear to be. He seems to be more objecting on the loss of the new trees in the future.
Well, no, and the actual living. If you look on the halfway down the first paragraph of the report, the building's windows will be shaded for the majority of the day. The dwellings being sited in a tree location. Trees being solar powered air conditioners will in fact deprive the dwelling of light, decrease annual ambient temperatures, increase air moisture. So the whole concept of having houses in this proximity to the trees is not a good idea.
Okay, so you're saying therefore the harm then is more upon climate change type things, or?
Yes, and like he says further on, as Councillor Fitter said, the place of trees will raise numerous clearly foreseeable future conflicts for the green environment and the retained tree. The tree report has failed to comment or mitigate these obvious future conflicts satisfactorily, and actually the proposed planting scheme will indeed exacerbate those issues long term.
Okay, and you're considering that to be both a problem from a climate change point of view and also a character of the area point of view?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, therefore I think the reason for refusal, if you go that way, would have to include description of both those terms of harm. So that would be the loss of the trees from the proposal now and potential loss in the future impacting on the character of the area, and also what you're talking about here is the climate change from just overall loss of trees. I mean, it's worth pointing out obviously that overall the ecologist has shown that the scheme would add net gain habitat wise. Obviously that's not quite the same as climate change. But obviously you'd have to be very clear as well about what the harm is in terms of character of the area. So what you're saying is, I think that introducing these houses, which obviously necessitate some tree loss, would have some significant adverse impact on the character of the lane in the locality.
Yeah,
so
happy that.
I think you need to be clear on that.
Bring in Councillor, what does Councillor Tudor think of that?
just a moment. Can I, while you're on that, are there any points you wish to make in summary about the policy, the weight of policy compliance? Or any points at all that you wish to make before we go to the vote?
Yeah, obviously the case officer's already pointed out both verbally and in the reports why the scheme is deemed to be acceptable from an infill point of view. So that calls it housing policy. We feel that the actual design of the houses and their locating on the plots themselves has minimised impact on trees. And obviously we think that we can achieve a good landscaping scheme to retain that character of the area. I know the BS standard was referred to. What that requires is that schemes come forward and best take into account the impact on trees and replanting and future conflicts. The agent would obviously argue that, the architect would obviously argue that they have done that. So obviously if this went to an appeal against the refusal grounds that you're mentioning, then that would be the arguments backwards and forwards on that.
Right, thank you. So, Councillor Jewell, my understanding is that you're being advised that the reasons for refusal would be around the loss of trees and potential loss in the future, affecting the character of the area and climate change, and significant adverse impact on the character of the area generally. Are those the points you wish to make for refusal?
Yeah, and the effect on the actual house, people that live in those houses in the future.
Thank you. I've got the Vice Chairman's hand up, but I'll just go to Councillor Tudor. Are you happy to second on that basis, Councillor Tudor?
Yes, I am. I wondered whether Councillor Fitter wanted to say anything else before we go to the vote, though.
Well, Councillor Fitter's hand isn't up, Councillor Tudor, so I would assume he would have put his hand up if he wanted to. Vice Chairman, you're next, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I would just like to say that we seem to be concentrating entirely on trees on this application. I would like to say that the buildings themselves, I think, are exemplar modern buildings, and I tend to like that. And if I can talk about the trees, we say a tree is a tree, but it's not a 100-year oak tree, is it? It's sycamore.
Oh.
If we can set, can I carry on, please?
Yes, please do.
If we talk about plants, plants are plants. We could say Japanese knotweed is a plant, but will we want it? No. And do people want sycamore? I know they've been there, but they're not what I would term an exemplar tree. So the loss of one or two of those, I don't think is a big decision to make. And as regards the future protection of what is being in the landscape plan, I think they will need to apply to the tree preservation people to get some pruning done. So I think we're covered there. So on balance, I tend to support this application, Chairman.
Yes, thank you very much, Vice Chairman.
Devil's advocate, I suspect, because I can see the weight of what is coming towards this, but that doesn't change my view.
No, thank you. And I'm getting concerned because we were moving towards the vote, but now we have more hands going up. Ben Kerno, I see you. Were you wanting to come in, Ben?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just a couple of points, if I may. I think just what Councillor Greenslade raised there about a tree, and a tree isn't defined, and the case law suggests that there's no minimum size exemption, and they looked at seedlings and saplings. Okay, they're trees, so I think we just need to be careful. A tree probably is a tree at all stages of life, except when it's a seed. That's probably what the case law is saying. But on the back of that, Councillor Bull, I think Councillor Greenslade raised a couple of important points, and as did Matt Stevenson, and I'm thinking ahead if we did go to appeal, there's been excellent mitigation offered as part of this application. There are TPO doesn't necessarily preclude any development, and there would be opportunities, wouldn't there, for lopping and cutting for applications to come in later, further down the line. So we need to be mindful of that. So I just wanted to put that out there, but I suspect members are looking to go the other way. Thank you, Chair.
I think you're making the point that this is quite policy strong in other ways, and the committee must take that into consideration.
Yes, two points really, Chair. Just to be careful about the tree, I wouldn't want us to say, oh, it's a sycamore. It could still be a tree, but on the other side, if you like, there has been mitigation offered. I'm always thinking ahead to the appeal, which could come in. So just to be careful of that. But it looks, from the way obviously the debate is going, I can see perhaps where we're heading. And just to reiterate what Mr. Stevenson said there about mitigation, a TPO. Okay, we could still entertain an application. There can still be mitigation, and don't forget there could be applications coming in the future for this lopping, couldn't there, and cutting, which can often be works. It doesn't have to be cutting down a tree. It could be pruning, if you like. Okay, so that could deal with any future issues, couldn't it, with light or anything like that.
Yes, thank you. We've been an hour on this application now. I would like to move towards the vote, but I've got two more hands raised. Councillor Fitter, you'd like to speak again, and then Councillor Batters. Councillor Fitter, would you like to unmute?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I asked you to consider Policy 25, green infrastructure, and I think that what Matt has said about we have to justify things, but the existing green infrastructure network in Cornwall, which is important to recreation, leisure, community use, townscape and landscape qualities and visible amenities, will be protected and enhanced. Well, this development will not protect or enhance it. It will do exactly the opposite, in actual fact, regardless of how many trees they replant. So I do believe, in actual fact, that is a valid consideration to make. And I certainly, in actual fact, would concur with what Ben has said, that a tree is a tree, and so sycamore. So this has a protection order on, and first and foremost, as councillors, we have to ensure that we do protect something that is vital with the tree preservation order on the site, and I believe that this will damage that site. And so, in actual fact, on this occasion, the lopping of trees also, as Councillor Jewell has said, that they'll need to lop the trees to prevent overshading. That will require a licence, and so you're doing something which is not necessary if you hadn't got a development on the site in the first place. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Now, I do apologise to you, Councillor Batters. I am interested to hear what you say, and we'll get to you, but I want to put to bed this Policy 25 issue. Before I do that, I see, Tim, you've got your hand up. Presumably it is to address that. Would you like to address that, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The issue in terms of enhancement is that it will enhance, because part of the requirement, is to have a net gain in biodiversity, and the ecologists confirm that that will be the case. So in terms of green infrastructure, it satisfies that policy, in my opinion. I apologise, it should have been referred to in the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Batters, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I'll be very brief, really. I've listened to everything that's been said. There's been a lot of valid points on both sides of the fence. Bearing in mind that probable appeal will be in line on this one, and I would support a lot of what was said by Councillor Greenslade on this one, and I should be voting along with recommendation, I'm afraid.
Thank you very much, Councillor Batters. It's good to have both sides of the argument. Now, I really do want to move towards the vote. I've still got, Councillor Batters, would you like to lower your hand? Tim, your hand's up still. Did you wish it still to be up?
No, sorry.
Thank you. Matt, do you wish to say anything else at this point?
No, I don't think so. I think it's been covered by Ben and Tim and myself already about the issues. Just to further clarify, I don't think Policy 25 would add any strength to the reason for refusal.
No.
I think it is around that Policy 23 that you have to make this consideration.
So I'm going back now to the proposer, Councillor Jewell, policy 23, loss of tree and potential loss in the future, affecting the character of the area and climate change, significant adverse impact on the character of the area. Are you happy that that's your proposal?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Councillor Tudor, are you happy that that is what you're seconding?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, can you confirm that all hands are down, please?
Councillor Thomas has got his hand up. Now it's gone down. Now I can confirm it's clear.
Thank you. So I have a proposal by Councillor Jewell, the words you've heard now 2 or 3 times, seconded by Councillor Tudor for refusal. So all those in favour of refusal, please show. We now wait for Emma to count votes.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm I have the names of all those who are voting for. Could I ask members to lower their hands now?
Can you confirm all hands are lowered?
I can confirm all hands are lowered.
All those against refusal, please raise your hand. And again, we wait for Emma to count.
Thank you, Chairman. I have the names of those who are voting against. Could I ask members to lower their hands?
You've got mine as well.
I haven't. I was going to come to you at the end.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the full committee or are there any?
No, I need all hands lowered again to do the abstentions. I need Councillor Bassers and yourself to lower your hands.
Oh, sorry. Breaking my own rules.
All clear.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm all hands are lowered, so it's those who are abstaining.
Are there any abstentions, please?
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm I have the names of those abstaining. Now, can I go to Councillor Thomas for his vote, please?
Councillor Dyer, could you lower your hand, please?
That's what I had, sorry.
Chairman, I still need the vote from Councillor Mike Thomas now.
I apologise. I voted against refusal. I apologise. I'll get this sorted out.
Chairman, could I just confirm with the legal officer he has the same vote as I do?
Yes, of course.
Hi, Emma, I'm here.
Thank you, Ben. Can you confirm that you've got 7 for, 7 against and 1 abstaining?
Yep, 771, Emma.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the vote has been tied by 7 votes in favour with 7 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you. So I'm afraid I have to make a casting vote. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chairman.
Well, I'm really sorry to be in that position. Right. I want to make a couple of points then. I'm going to have to go with my vote. It's not right to change the vote, but the reasons are these. First of all, it's infill, so I think the principle of some sort of development on that site moving forward is there. The parish council, I take into account the votes, the fact that there were only their voices heard on the parish council, and the parish council have not been very vocal in against this application. It's been to the design review panel, and I think it has many good environmental features that will attract people who are interested in living in that situation. And I think it is actually very policy compliant, which I think would be a weak case of appeal. So I am awfully sorry to those members of the committee who feel the other, but my vote has to stay, and I'm voting in favour against refusal. So I'm now looking for another proposal, please. And Councillor Thomas, I said I would come to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I'm happy to propose as set out.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Vice Chairman, your hand is raised. Would you like to speak?
Just to confirm, I would like to second, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So can I have confirmation that all hands are down, please?
Yes.
All hands are lowered, Chairman.
Sorry.
Thank you. In that case, I have a proposal from Councillor Mike Thomas to approve as set out, which is seconded by the Vice Chairman. All those in favour, please raise your hand. We now wait for counting.
Just to say, Chairman, we need to go to Councillor Thomas again, don't we?
Yes, we do. Thank you. Thanks, Vice Chairman. That's helpful.
Thank you, Chairman. I have the names of all those who voted for.
Thank you.
Ask members to lower their hands.
Do you wish to go to Councillor Thomas now or at the end?
I'll go to him at the end.
Right, thank you. Can you confirm all hands are lowered?
I need Councillor Dyer to lower his hand.
Right.
Yep, I can confirm all hands are lowered now. Thank you.
Thank you. Against, would you please raise your hand? Thank you. We're now waiting for the count.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got the names of all those voting against.
Thank you very much. And any abstention? We need all hands lowered, please. I've still got 3 raised hands. Can we lower all hands, please? Councillor Alvey, Councillor May and Councillor Dyer, I've still got your hands raised. Councillor Dyer, your hand is still raised. Thank you. Can you confirm, Emma, that all hands are lowered?
Yeah, I can confirm all hands are lowered. We just need those voting abstaining now.
Thank you. Is there anyone abstaining, please? No, there appear to be no abstentions, Emma. Then it's just...
Can I go to Councillor Thomas?
I'd support for.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So again, we're just waiting for the vote.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I confirm once again with the legal officer, Ben, on the numbers he has?
Hi, Emma. Yes, go ahead.
I've got 7 voting in favour and 8 voting against.
7, 8. Yeah, that's what I
And
have.
no abstentions.
No abstentions.
Thank you. So we have no determination.
Chairman, the vote has been lost by 7 votes in favour and 8 against.
So what is the next step, Emma?
Somebody changed their vote then.
Yeah. So Ben, can we take some advice, please? Next step.
Councillor May has indicated, Chairman.
Oh, right, Councillor May. Thank you. Would you like to unmute Councillor May? Councillor May, would you like to unmute?
New proposal, Chairman, is required.
Yes.
I'm not making it.
I wondered
Let's try, Councillor.
If we could have some advice first, please.
Some advice, please.
From either Ben Kerno or Matt Stevenson.
Thank you, Councillor Bull. Yeah, I'll come in. It would be appropriate for Emma to come in as well, I suspect. So effectively we've run out of options, haven't we? So we'd need to come back with something quite substantially different, I would suggest today, or it comes back on another agenda. We've been in this position before. We've effectively voted ourselves out, haven't we, at the moment?
What?
I would ask Emma to just come in.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, if members are coming back now, they need to come back with either a different reason for refusal or a motion to defer. I mean, that's also on the table.
We still have deferral. I mean, to come back now.
I wonder if we could, would it be possible to defer for further information from the tree officer, for further input from the tree officer?
I think it would, Chair. I think we've still got deferral there, haven't we? It would be a bit, it would be almost perverse if we were to come back with an approval or refusal on the same sort of grounds. We need something really quite different. And I know we've been in this position a couple of times previously. It's always been with the Central Committee. I've had this a couple of times. And that would be the position. We've clarified it previously. We'd need to come back with something really quite different. So in reality, we wouldn't be coming back today, other than with a deferral, to come back to the next meeting then. And usually, as you say, in the interim, we'd be looking to get some information. So what was it today that made it quite difficult to make that decision? So possibly it is to get some further information.
Yes, I mean, it seems to me that the committee is split on, if you like, the weight of all the other policies against the weight of the tree officer's objection. So I'm wondering if it would be possible for the tree officer to attend the next meeting to come back with further detail on his objection. And if that is suggested of Ben as a possible way forward, I'm happy to propose that.
I mean, I should highlight the risk, Chair. Obviously, the applicant's probably watching. There is the risk of an appeal for non-determination, but we're in this position, and I don't think there's any other way out.
No,
there's always that slight risk, isn't there? You know, what were they doing? Why couldn't they make a decision? But the applicant will have seen, Chair, that we've been through the processes. You know, I think we've probably done our best today. So I think that's probably where we are now. We're probably looking at that deferral. But obviously, you know, guided by the members, Chair.
It's very difficult when people change their vote at that point. So does that seem reasonable wording to you, Ben, that I've just used?
So run that past me again, Chair.
A deferral, because the issue seems to be that the weight of other policies balanced against the weight of the tree officer's opinion and advice. Whether we could have more detail from the tree officer and his attendance at the next meeting.
I think that might be helpful, Chair. And as you pointed out as well, members perhaps haven't been that confident in their voting, have they? There's been, as we said, there's been some change there. So that would seem sensible to me. That's probably the best we can do.
Well, I'm happy to make that proposal. I see I've got some hands up, but I'm going to ask for a seconder first.
Seconded. Councillor Thomas.
That's Councillor Mike Thomas, is it?
Yes, seconded.
Yes, I'm going to take that, Councillor Thomas, because you can't raise your hands. So I've got that as a proposal. Now, does anyone else wish to speak? Some hands are still raised. Would you
Councillor
confirm?
Fitter, Chairman.
Yes, Councillor Fitter, are you wishing to speak?
Yes, Chairman, you were asking for reasons why to come back in with something different. Well, I would propose a deferral subject for a site meeting to the site, so that members can see the quality of this site and see what's involved in the landscape there and the tree coverage.
And you do actually mean a site meeting, don't you?
I mean, Madam Chairman, a site visit, not a site meeting, a site visit.
I will have to ask if we can, during the meeting, go back to asking for a site visit, or if it has to be a formal site meeting.
Chair, can I just interrupt?
Yes.
Yeah, just to confirm that we have undertaken a risk assessment on the potential for a site meeting or a site visit, and the risk assessment has come back and said actually it wouldn't be suitable to undertake a site visit or a site meeting in the current time.
No, understand, right, so that I'm afraid is no go. Now, can I confirm I have no more hands raised, Vice Chairman, please?
That is correct, Chairman.
Thank you.
Can I? Sorry.
Yeah, please do, Vice Chair. You'd like to make a point?
It might sound impertinent of me to say this, but I don't wish it to be taken in that context. But as we had a change of views in the second vote, did everyone vote in the manner they wished to, given the system that we're operating? Because it is a bit clunky sometimes.
To be fair, I think they did, but I will ask Mr. Kerno if he has any comments on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Chair, and that's why I was checking. I think we need to be quite careful if we were to raise any concerns with the voting. That would throw everything into, question. So no, absolutely, the voting was correct. And obviously, Councillor Green said, I suppose we would say perhaps it's slightly irregular if members have changed their mind, but they're able to do that.
Yes,
and that just adds to the fun, I think, for us, Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you.
Well, this is such a contentious application, clearly, or the committee is so split. I'm surprised it's contentious because of the policy, but it is. So it won't be an unhappy outcome to have further detail from the tree officer. So we have a proposal proposed by myself for deferral for the reasons given. That has been seconded by Councillor Mike Thomas. All hands are down at the moment. Can I ask for raising of hands for those who agree with that proposal, please? Now we wait for the vote to be counted again.
Thank you, Chairman. I have the names of all those voting for.
Thank you. Can you lower your hands, please?
Thank you, Chairman. All hands are lowered.
Thank you. Is there anyone against, please? Please raise your hand if you're against. I see no hands raised, Emma. Can I go on to abstentions?
You can go on to abstentions, yeah.
Were there any abstentions, please? And there are no abstentions.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just confirm with Councillor Thomas what his vote would be?
Yes, fully support.
Okay, and also I haven't got a hand raised for Councillor May. Could I ask for her vote? Councillor May, are you voting for, against, or abstaining?
Yes, support.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the motion to defer has been carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to call a 5-minute comfort break.
Just a moment, Chairman. Councillor
Yes,
Miller has indicated.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Vice Chairman.
Madam Chairman, I just wanted to say in actual fact that I think that, and I don't wish this as a criticism in any way, but I think you were slightly disingenuous when you said you couldn't really understand why there were objections, why that you felt it policy it should have been delivered. But I think that those of us have concern over the green structure and that part of it.
If I said that, I didn't. The weight on my words was not meant that way, Councillor Fitter. I apologise. What I meant was the balance of policy compliant seemed quite heavy. It's just an unfortunate one where the committee are quite understandably split right down the middle.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Right, 5-minute comfort break, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's 11:40 then, is it?
Yeah, 11:40. Is that okay
Thank you.
with Sarah and Emma?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Thank you.
Are my pills out with you? Are you there, Emma?
I'm here, yes.
When perhaps...
Councillor Bull, Chairman, meeting producer here, just to say that the live stream is still public.
I gather that, yes, of course, Sarah. I just wanted to ask if Emma would confirm when everyone is back. And when we
will do, Chairman.
Thank you.
Chairman, it appears that we'd be waiting for Councillor Mike Thomas to join us.
Right. Of course, that might be a problem. Mike had a problem earlier, didn't he? So this might be reflective of that. Might it be a good idea for someone to telephone?
Councillor Bull, it's Sarah Goodall, meeting producer. I'll give Councillor Thomas a call.
Thank you.
Councillor Bull, Mike Thomas has his hand up.
Smashing. Councillor Thomas, would you like to unmute and just confirm that all is well with your attendance? Can you hear me, Councillor Thomas? I don't think
Councillor Thomas, you're still muted.
I'm now okay. Is my hand up though?
It is.
Great, thank you. I assure you that was a hard job, but I did it.
Nice to see you joining us properly, Councillor Thomas. Right.
Councillor Bull, Sarah Goodall, meeting producer here. Can I just advise that your Democratic Services Officer just does a further roll call of members just before you start your second session to confirm that everyone is back and present.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just go down through the names. Members, if you could confirm you're present. Councillor Batters?
Yes, present, raring to go again.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Still with you.
Thank you. Councillor Bull?
Still here.
Councillor Dyer? Councillor Dyer? Councillor Dyer, you're on mute. Councillor Dyer, can you confirm you're here? Could you unmute? Councillor Dyer, can you hear me? You're on mute.
wonder if Councillor Dyer has returned.
Councillor Dyer?
Yeah, hello.
Hello. Thank you, Councillor Dyer.
Third time.
Councillor Fitter?
Present.
Councillor Greenslade?
Present.
Councillor Jewell?
Present.
Councillor Kenny?
Present.
Councillor May?
Present.
Councillor Simmons?
Yes, present.
Councillor John Thomas?
Present.
Councillor Mike Thomas?
Present.
Councillor Tudor?
Present.
Councillor Williams?
President, correct.
And Chairman, I can confirm that Martin Alvey has left the meeting.
Right, thank you. Of course, Councillor Alvey's left the meeting due to a declaration of interest. So thank you, Councillor Dyer. Your hand's still up. If you could lower your hand, please, unless you're wanting to speak. Hands. Lower your hand. Are you wishing to speak, Councillor Dyer? Hello, Councillor Dyer. Can you hear me? Sarah, how do we proceed?
Certainly. So, Councillor Dyer, it's Sarah Goodall, meeting producer. Councillor Dyer, we can't hear you, but can you please lower your hand? It's on your toolbar in the middle of your screen, the raise your hand function. If you could just, it's the one to the right of the three dots. If you could click on that, that will lower. Thank you very much, Councillor Dyer. Councillor Dyer's hand is lower, Councillor.
Lovely, thank you. Well, that was a nice, easy one to start our virtual meetings with, wasn't it? So we now move on to agenda item 4.2. PA 19071008, Invest in Sheldon Falmouth Developments Limited, Sheldon House Nursing Home, Seaview Road, Falmouth. Demolition of the existing building and development of 34 residential apartments with external landscaping, access, car parking and associated works. Case officer is Tim Marsh. So over to you again, please, Tim.
Thank you, Chairman. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be sharing the screen now. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So yes, the application is to redevelop the existing former nursing home at Sheldon House, Seaview Road, Falmouth. The main key issues in this application are the heritage impacts, which includes design, scale and massing considerations, impact on residential amenity, with particular reference to Weller Court and the new house, affordable housing, access and parking, trees and ecology, and finally drainage. So this is the application site, situated here fairly close to the centre of Falmouth. You have Pennants Road, which forms the western boundary, and then Seaview Road, which wraps around this parcel of development, and the site forms a central part of that parcel with a frontage onto Seaview Road. The site does fall within the Falmouth Conservation Area, and you can see from this image and from the aerial photograph that it occupies roughly a third to a half of the plot on the western side of the plot, sorry, and the remainder is the garden area and driveway to Sheldon House. But you can also see from this aerial photograph that it's the only one of the sort of plot between the two roads that doesn't have development on that eastern side. So this is the existing block plan. Again, identifies the existing footprint of Sheldon House, and to north you have Weller Court, which is approximately 30 apartments, and then to the south Melville Court, similar number, 32 I think. And then this is the new house, which is referred to in the report, which is a single detached dwelling, the large garden. Then Seaview Court is the opposite, another apartment block. The application is supported by a comprehensive design and access statement, which I think it's worth mentioning, and I'll just point to a couple of brief images which come from the design access statement to indicate the sort of approach to the development and how the former development has been arrived at. So I've explained the existing site with the open area on the western side and the two access points. There is a significant difference in levels between Pennants Road. It's significantly higher than Seaview Road, as you'll see in the cross sections in due course. So the proposed form was to form 5 blocks of development, and then they were then moved around in order to look at defined spaces and response to design review panel comments, which included the provision of a northern access route for pedestrians, and then pulling back the 2 blocks closer to Pennants Road, and then finally the butterfly plan form of development, which is now proposed with these sort of recessed areas and the distinctive plan form of the development. The existing tree constraints, somebody's got a microphone on, I think. The existing tree constraints are shown on here. You can see the trees plotted on this boundary in green, and then the proposal is to retain those boundaries, and then the existing sort of planted garden area that will be redeveloped, and you'll see there is a proposed landscaping scheme which I've pulled up here. This also shows the site plan arrangement for the development with these 5 blocks, and then how it's possible to walk through the site around the blocks and connect between the 2 roads. The landscape scheme has been designed by a landscape architect consultancy, and you can see here the sort of concept that they've got for the landscaping scheme. So the proposal is for a total of 7 different floors of development, but it's important to emphasise that there's only 5 floors above ground level. And that's by reason of the significant change in levels that I mentioned. You can see here that as a result of that, there's nothing at lower ground level or indeed at ground level on the Pennants Road frontage. So the lower ground is for 29 car parking spaces as a basement parking with access off Seaview Road, and then 3 disabled spaces. And then the upper floors all follow a similar pattern with 2 apartments at each level on these individual blocks. There are 1 or 2 duplex apartments, but pretty much it's a pair of dwellings on each floor for those apartments. And so that's the arrangement with these walkways connecting the blocks on the upper ground 1st and 2nd floors of the development. And then finally, you've got the upper roof terraces on the top floors of the development. You can see how they're at different levels, reflecting the transition as you go up through the site. This is the proposed levels and the route through the site, which I mentioned earlier, in terms of the connectivity between the blocks and the Pennants Road and Seaview Road. This is taken again from the design access statement. I've included it, although it's an area review, but it's helpful to understand how the development sits in the site and the changes that have been made. I won't run through all the changes, but there have been changes. Principally, there's been a reduction in the removal of 1 story since submission of the development. So it's now 34, where it was originally 36 units, and it was 6 stories above ground level. It's now 5 in those central blocks. And there has been revisions to the design, principally addition of bay windows and so forth on the Pennants Road frontage, and the removal of a gated entrance on the Seaview Road frontage. So this is the existing elevation from Pennants Road. You've got Weller Court here, and then Melville Court there, and you can see how it sits roughly at a similar height of those overall height to those 2 existing blocks of residential apartments. This is the proposed elevation from Pennants Road. And whilst the development will clearly be higher, as you can see here, it's important to emphasise that that higher form of development is in the centre of the site. The actual frontage onto Pennants Road will be 2 stories above ground level, as you can see here. And then with the next part of the block at 3 stories, which is a similar height to the adjacent development. This is taken from the design access statement, a computer generated view of how the development would look from Seaview Road, Pennants Road. This is the existing elevation of Seaview Road. That's Sheldon House here, and set back behind its large garden area to the front, again with Melville Court on the lower ground and Weller Court above. And then this is just the outline of the new house that's referred to again in the report. This is a proposed elevation to Seaview Road with the basement parking entrance here, a sort of natural stone facing to that entrance, and then the development stepping up again from behind with 3 stories above that basement parking on the frontage. This is taken from the design access statement, a projected image on the Seaview Road frontage with that northern pedestrian access route through here and the entrance into the basement parking. This is the existing elevation to the north. and this is the proposed elevation to the north, so that's facing towards Weller Court. So you've got the Pennants Road element here, and then Seaview Road at the bottom. And there have been changes to the design and treatment of this element of the development to remove windows to address the potential overlooking issue of the new house and Weller Court, and also screened covering to the walkways between those blocks. This is the existing elevation to the south, and this is the proposed. So looking to the south, that's from the Melville Road side. So you've got the the Melville Court side. You've got the basement parking here with the blocks of development above stepping up into the site, and then similarly from the Pennants Road frontage into the site again. This is a photograph, image to give an indication of how the development might look from within the scheme. And this is the proposed long section through the development. You can see here the amount of the site that's occupied by the basement car park with those 5 above ground stories above, and the connecting walkways. A little bit deceptive because it isn't one block of development. It is, as you've seen from the earlier pictures, 5 individual blocks that are connected. And these are transverse cross sections through the site. So this is Weller Court above, and then Melville Court below, and then similarly with that section. So moving on to the photographs, this is the existing view on Pennants Road. That's Sheldon House there, the pink coloured building, Melville Court here, and Weller Court there. Then this is looking on Seaview Road. I'm just to the south of the site. That's the entrance into the site there. And that's then slightly further on looking into the site, so Melville Court is there. This is taken from within the site, looking across through the site boundary to Melville Court. You can see there's 4 floors of development plus a sort of mansard arrangement giving 5 above ground stories there. And that's perhaps a better view of Melville Court from Seaview Road. Both this photograph here is a slightly distant view, and then closer up here. But this is taken from Pennants Road, looking between Weller Court here and the existing rear part of Sheldon House. Then up within the courtyard area of Weller Court here, looking back towards the new house. This is the new house, the gable end to the new house here, and the tree planting, and then the south site is off to the right. Again, within the courtyard area to Weller Court, looking across to Sheldon House here, the existing building to be demolished, and you can see across through to Melville Court. So obviously that will now then be occupied by development. This is the view on Melville Road of Weller Court. This is within the site itself now, looking across towards the new house, and then Weller Court is off to the left, slightly further in onto the development here, looking back at Sheldon House with Weller Court above. The bottom left photograph is in the garden area in front of Sheldon House at the moment, looking across. Again, that's the new house behind the trees here. And then this is the road that runs around the side of the front garden of Sheldon House, and then the new house is behind these trees, and that's Seaview Court at the end on the opposite side of Seaview Road. These photographs are taken from within the garden to the new house. That's a swimming pool that's referred to, and that's Seaview Court, the apartment block opposite on the other side of Seaview Road. Again, within the garden area, looking across, you can just see the top of Melville Court here. And then this is within the garden area. You're looking at the other side from the view you recall I showed you just now, the gable end. So you've got Sheldon House here, and then slightly further around looking up to Weller Court. You can see Sheldon House is a pretty tired building, and these photographs here are just of the rear of the property, and you can see the existing wall that separates the back of Sheldon House from Pennants Road. Then some further photographs looking into the site. Sheldon House, you can see set back from the road here. And then these are from Pennants Road, these lower 2 photographs. There are a series of slides I'm going to take you through now, looking at the solar study. It's important to sort of understand what these are all showing. There are 3 rows of images, each showing a different scenario. So you need to focus really on the top row, which is the existing situation. And then the bottom row, which is what is now proposed. The middle row is what was proposed when the application was submitted, and obviously it's been reduced since then. But in terms of comparing what's existing with what's proposed, it's the top and the bottom images. And then you've got 4 times an hour, each an hour apart. This is in the spring autumn solstice, so it's March, September, 9 o'clock. So you can compare that with the bottom one. You can see there's fairly similar. But then if you go across to sort of midday, the spring autumn solstice, you can see there's starting to be shading into the garden area of the new house and into the courtyard area of Weller Court, but limited degree. Then this is the afternoon, again during the spring autumn solstice, so you compare existing 1 o'clock with what's proposed at 1 o'clock. So the shading into that front area of the new house is probably the most noticeable point on that one. And then moving it up to 4 o'clock in March, September, as it is at the moment, you're starting to see the long shadows from Sheldon House at the moment going into the courtyard of Weller Court. And then the main change here is into the shading of the new house. During the summer months, due to the sun being high in the sky, the actual difference is minimal, as you can see. If you look at midday, and again at these are 9 o'clock in the morning, the shadowing there's no real overshadowing at all as a result of the development. But there will be come late afternoon, as you can see from these 2 photographs, the images. That's the existing situation, and then that's 4 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer solstice. The winter situation, not surprisingly, very long shadows, so the actual changes are really to the extent of shadowing. There's shadowing pretty much all at most times of the day in the winter period. So that's in the afternoon during the winter time. You can come back to it if needs be. Obviously, there's a lot of images to take in there, but the point that has been made is that there will be shading, but it will be confined to certain times of the day at certain times of the year. This is the proposed elevation onto Pennants Road, which has been superseded, removal of the top floor essentially, and similarly the Seaview Road elevation. So I just included those for comparative purposes. The balance of considerations in this proposed development are, firstly, although it would change the character of part of the conservation area, it complies with the aims and objectives of the relevant policies for the historic environment, including Cornwall Local Plan Policy 24 and Draft Neighbourhood Plan Policy DG7. The scheme improves on proposals that are already supported by the Cornwall Design Review Panel. The support from the review panel was received prior to submission of the application. That was for the 6-storey scheme, so the scheme that's now revised actually is a further iteration of the scheme that gained support from the DRP. It's an innovative windfall development on a sustainable brownfield site that is supported in principle under the Cornwall Local Plan and the Neighbourhood Plan policies. The extent of shading throughout the year is not considered to be so significant, taking account potential overlooking as to warrant refusal of the application under Local Plan Policy 16. Additional information and significant changes have been made, including reduced height and the number of proposed units, down to 34 from 36, revisions to reduce overlooking, removal of the gate to Pennants Road, and provisional agreement to an affordable housing contribution of 102,000 per off-site unit. Proposals will include various provisions to satisfy the draft Falmouth Neighbourhood Plan development policies DG1, DG2 and DG9 by providing electric vehicle charging points, cycle parking, a travel plan and natural ventilation, etc. The existing boundary vegetation is to be retained and serve as partial screening to neighbours. Proposed development is considered to invigorate its setting through a design, form and layout that accords with the requirements for good design in Policy 12 of the Cornwall Local Plan. Conditional recommendation for approval, subject to a 106 legal agreement to secure the off-site affordable housing contribution and contributions towards off-site improvements in education, open space and highways infrastructure and mitigation of recreational impacts on the fowl and health, especially area of conservation. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Tim. We do have 2 public speakers in objection on this application. And the first one is a Mr. Danny Wright. Do we have Mr. Danny Wright with us?
Yes, you do.
Lovely. Thank you for coming, Mr. Wright. Mr. Wright, you have 3 minutes and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain from now. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny Wright, New House, Seaview Road. Firstly, I would like to refer you to the letters dated September 2019 and April 2020. These highlight the reasons for our objections, and these still stand despite planning revisions. We acknowledge that the design revisions to the development, however, our original reservations have not been mitigated. Simply redesigning unrealistic plans is not responding to legitimate objections. This is truly upsetting and will be a huge intrusion of our personal space due to the fact that 80% of our main living windows face the proposed development. We are concerned that the planning to the local authority for social housing is distorting the council and planning's decision and dismissing our concerns on the impact locally and to us as neighbours. The timing of this decision comes at a time where we have unprecedented uncertainties about a second wave of the pandemic as the lockdown is being eased and the predicted recession which will follow in the years ahead. We would therefore like the meeting to put a delay in the planning decision for at least 3 months due to the fact that in all previous recessions there has been economic scarring, falling prices and significant bankruptcy in the development sector. Approval of this design at this time is extremely high risk, and we feel a delay is fair and reasonable to all parties as the economic outlook may be clearer in the 3 months' time. As well as the breach to our rights to light, we strongly fear our property is now being blighted by the ongoing planning and development situation, which may take years to fully resolve, and we will be blighted irrespective of whether development starts or not. You should note that we have taken legal advice and we are under counsel of that advice. As such, what I'm prepared to say is limited at this meeting. We are local business people. This is our forever home and we have invested in and want to remain in. We have lived in Falmouth for over 15 years, 7 of those years in Seaview Road. We always knew that once Sheldon Nursing Home became vacant that the plots would be redeveloped, but believed that the planning process would be fair and reasonable to the residents of the area. Any reasonable design respecting people's
30 seconds remain.
Would be accepted. The current design is unsympathetic, economically vulnerable, and an overdevelopment of the site.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Are there any questions? Perhaps you could just stay there a minute, Mr. Wright, in case there are questions from the committee, please. Are there any questions from Mr. Wright, please? I see one hand up, Vice Chairman. To Councillors Jewell and Kenny, is that correct, Vice Chairman?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jewell, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I would like to ask the Speaker, in his view, does he believe that this application is going to impact greatly on his living space through the shading predictions we've seen by the case officer in the future?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. That's my question and answer. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. There's comments about a swimming pool. Is that in your property, and where exactly is it, and how is it going to be affected?
The swimming pool is in property, and the development directly overlooks it.
And will that be, at the moment, is that shaded? Does it go into the sunshine?
It is in the sunshine. It will be shaded, and we have screening from the trees, which currently we are uncertain as whether they will remain or not. But the height of the development is such that this will then overlook directly on the swimming pool, and we have young children. Hopefully we'll get grandchildren in the future, and we are very unhappy about this.
I don't think you can see the picture that we can see. Can I just ask the planning officer, is that the original house that is behind the swimming pool? that we're seeing? I'm seeing a picture of 4 pictures.
Yeah, you've got the 4. I'll put them up because it's the new house that we're talking about.
I'll probably ask the planning officer a bit more about that when we get to questions of the planning officer. Thank you.
We can ask for the picture to come up again, Councillor Kenny. Vice Chair, would you like to confirm there are no further questions?
I can confirm, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Wright, thank you very much for attending. That seems to be the end of questions for you. Thank you. Do we have Mr. Chris Snell with us?
Yes, I am with you.
Hello, Mr. Snell. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Snell, you will have 3 minutes and you'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you. Our main objection is the way in which the intended development still conflicts with Falmouth Conservation Area concerns. Site density. Sheldon is still massively overdeveloped in its revised form. Comparison with a Google aerial map shows a realistic estimate of about 80 to 90% destruction of natural habitat replaced by a concrete footprint. It is there with full indisputable visual evidence to inspect and confirm. Its height is still well above local apartment block skylines and gives the appearance of high-rise mania that degrades the coastal areas of the Mediterranean. It is development by an out-of-county developer showing contempt for an environment he doesn't have to live in. Health and privacy considerations. Conservation embraces a concept of silence and freedom from undue noise. Sheldon is in close proximity and an obvious contender for after-hours noise generation, notwithstanding privacy concerns. Open balcony doors and windows in the revised Sheldon development still overlook Melville Court bedrooms. Noise will emanate from those open doors and windows during hours of normal rest. Noise from late-night television, radio, and social gathering on balconies will lead to stress and fatigue-related health hazards for those trying to sleep here at the back. To ignore this would show a careless disregard for health and well-being. An immediate harm to health will be caused even before the site is developed by removal of mature trees. These filter sound and natural airborne particles and provide a privacy screen. The existing tall green boundary of mature trees should remain. But of particular concern will be toxic, lung-damaging particulate pollutants that will be released by demolition and other actions on site. Respiratory damage will not be compensated for by planting a few replacement immature saplings on the massively reduced garden area. Acceptance then of this proposal would show a careless disregard in dismissing health and well-being considerations. So reduction in building density of the site footprint should be given serious reconsideration. The area is assuming the character of built-up, crammed and cramped city habitation, not in character with the historical Falmouth maritime tradition. Nature is giving way to concrete. Planners to greedy out-of-county speculators with no regard for the environment.
3 minutes, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Snell. Could you just stay on the line in case there are some questions?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Can I ask you to raise your hands if there are questions, please? I think at the moment I just see Councillor Kenny. Is that correct, Vice Chairman?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just check? I assume you're a neighbour. Are you in Melville? Is that where?
Yes, I live in Block B, which will be overlooked directly by the proposed development.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Chairman, can you confirm that there are no further hands for questions, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just check? I assume you're...
I don't know what's happening, but Councillor Kenny sounds a million miles away.
Councillor Chairman, sorry, that's Sarah Goodall, meeting producer here. That's just feedback from the last public speaker who I've just admitted into the meeting. It wasn't Councillor Kenny speaking.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, can you just confirm there are no further questions, please? I'm not sure.
Chairman, there's no more hands raised.
No. Okay, thank you. Then we move on to a statement which from Falmouth Town Council, which is to be read out by the Democratic officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The views of the Town Council are refused due to the height of the development that does not demonstrate sustainability. It is very tall, even with the reduction in one floor for part of the development, still being more than a storey higher than its uphill neighbour Weller Court and more than 2 stories taller than the downhill neighbour Melville Court, and therefore sets a detrimental precedent for the area. The neighbouring properties will be shadowed for most of the day throughout the year, particularly New House. This development should achieve a BREEAM excellent rating, but there is no evidence that this is viable. There is no reference to zero carbon or energy usage or reduction. The criteria for Neighbourhood Plan Policy DG1, Design in Housing Proposals, have not been demonstrated. In regard to Policy DG2, the proposals do not demonstrate the application of guidance form the Cornwall Design Guide on Sustainability. In regard to Policy DG7, Design in Conservation Areas, the proposal fails to demonstrate consistency with the scale and character of the area and to reinforce the sense of place and local distinctiveness. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Emma. We now move on to hearing from Mr. Tom Wright. Are you there, Mr. Wright?
Speaking. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Mr. Wright is the agent and speaking in support. You have 3 minutes, Mr. Wright. You'll be told when 30 seconds remain. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everybody. This scheme presented to members today has a recommendation for approval from the planning officer and the Cornwall Design Review Panel and will result in a number of significant benefits. It will prioritise the efficient use of a previously developed site in a highly sustainable location. It will assist with meeting an identified housing need. It will deliver a high quality scheme architecturally and through landscaping. It will raise £1.2 million to be spent on local affordable housing and an additional £360,000 towards education, highways, open space and local infrastructure. The associated benefits to development are reliant on the scheme delivering 34 dwellings. The number of dwellings is necessary in order to create a viable scheme. The proposed new apartments will be larger than national space standards and will have private and external balconies and terraces. Whilst the height of the proposal in comparison to the current Sheldon House will create a change, any impact to the conservation area will be very localised and minor and will be far outweighed by the public benefits in terms of the provision of new housing. The building has been carefully designed to prevent any unacceptable impacts on neighbouring residential amenity. In terms of privacy, metal louvers are included on walkways and balconies and windows are carefully placed to prevent any overlooking. On roof gardens, balustrades are now set back from the edge to prevent anybody looking over and down. A shading study has been submitted with the application to show that there won't be any unacceptable impacts. Whilst the proposal might result in a small reduction of natural light to gardens of a few properties later in the day, this will occur to a limited extent at only certain times of the day and year. And it is critical to point out that any development on the eastern part of the site, even if limited to 2 stories, would result in some shading of a similar level. Therefore, reducing the height further would not alter the extent significantly. The proposed building includes sustainability measures in line with building regulations. This is the appropriate measurement for residential development. The application has also taken heed from the Cornwall Sustainable Building Guide, as referenced by the Neighbourhood Plan. The sustainability measures include a fabric-first approach to achieve high standards of energy efficiency. This includes double and triple glazed windows, with walls, floors and roofs insulated to a high standard to improve airtightness, natural ventilation and energy-efficient appliances, lighting and heating systems. The application also includes electric vehicle charging points, cycle spaces, net biodiversity increase through measures such as
30 seconds remain.
Okay, and the use of local materials, BREEAM was referenced by the Town Council. However, I'd like to clarify BREEAM is not used to assess residential applications and is not a policy requirement. To conclude, the proposal has the support of the Cornwall Design Review Panel, who've described it as a project which will provide a good residential amenity for the occupants and represents a welcome, innovative typology that will invigorate the urban setting, whilst at the same time making good and efficient use of the brownfield site.
Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wright. Perhaps you would kindly stay on in case there are any questions.
Yep.
Vice Chairman, I think I see Councillor Tudor's hand up.
That is correct, yes.
That's the only one, would you agree?
And Councillor Fitter.
Councillor Tudor and Fitter. So Councillor Tudor, would you like...
Jewell.
Oh, and Councillor Jewell. Would you like to unmute, please, Councillor Tudor?
Hi, Mr. Wright. Glad to see the 1 million for the affordable housing provision, seeing more than 1 million. But I wondered, I'm just looking at the points of consideration. Some consultees saying apartments not needed. So I've got two questions really. Who do you think would be living in these apartments? Who do you envisage to be living in them? And will there be any restriction on occupancy to prevent them being used as second homes or student apartments?
Hi there. Yeah, I can answer that. As they're market dwellings, it's not possible to restrict occupancy entirely within the residential sector. They will fall under use class C3, so there won't be consent for students to use them, and technically that's a different use class. But within the residential sector, anybody can occupy them. They're two-bedroom apartments. They are larger than national space standards. So you could have, a younger family in there, or you could have older couples perhaps moving into the apartments, freeing up larger homes elsewhere. I think it's part of the chain in that respect. So I think there's a good offer here that will suit various occupiers. Does that answer your question, or is there any further question I can help with?
Yeah, that does. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Perhaps you'd lower your hand, please, Councillor Tudor. Now, Councillor Fitter, would you like to unmute, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sir, the affordable housing is going to be an off-site contribution, and which will give in 1,213,000. Can you confirm to me, please, that SIL then will be paid on all 34 of the units as they're developed, and that there will be no reduction in that fee?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's £1.2 million towards off-site affordable housing, which is appropriate in this instance, as confirmed with the council's affordable housing officer. And then, given it's 34 on-site market dwellings, the applicant will be paying SIL on each of those as well, which is, an additional couple of £100,000.
Yeah. So just so that I totally understand, is that because if you had the affordable housing units on the site, there will be no SIL paid for them.
That's correct.
But because you're making a contribution for off-site, it does mean in actual fact that you will now have to pay SIL on all 34 units.
That's correct. If you see it that way, there's a gain, a financial gain in that respect. You're correct there, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jewell, do you have a question? Would you like to unmute?
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. They're all two-bedroom flats, I believe. Have you got any idea at the moment what the market price is going to be of those flats? That's my first question. The second question is, you go on about the energy efficient, but I can't see nothing in the report to say they're actually producing any electric. Is there any solar panels? Is there any ground heat source pumps? Is there any air heat source pumps? Could you clarify that, please? Thank you very much.
Hi. Yeah, in respect of the first question on market price, obviously with everything going on in the world today, it's difficult to know what the situation will be. But obviously this is all factored into the applicant's consideration. I think using the adjacent properties at Melville Court would be a good place to start. And but we can't specify price, unfortunately. It's entirely up to the market and where that is at present. In respect of energy, there are with a new build like this of high quality, there is the appropriate response in respect of building regulations part L1A is initially through the fabric of the building. So with this, the fabric will limit heat gains and losses through thermal elements and other parts of the building fabric. So this is achieved through high insulation above building reg standards for walls, windows, roofs, floors, for thermal bridging and air tightness to limit carbon emissions. The units will be heated using electric, that have low flow sanitary fitting and water and energy monitors within them. So occupants will be able to reduce energy usage. In addition to this, I think it's important to reference the sustainable location of the site, which, in planning terms, the presumption is in favour of sustainable development. It's a brownfield site. It's walkable to most services and amenities, which I think
I think you've answered that part, Mr.
Yeah,
Wright.
apologies. Yeah.
And could I come back, please, Madam Chairman, please?
Yeah. Yes, there was
one point I've got to ask. Is there any age limit? Because the flats either side of you, I believe, have got like a certain age before they're occupied, retirement age people. Is there any age limitation on these flats that are going to be sold, please?
No, there's no age limit on them, so they're open to the market.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Vice Chairman, do we have any other questions, please?
Not at the moment, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Wright, for attending, and we move on to hear from Councillor Evans. Councillor Evans, you'll have 5 minutes when you'll be asked to begin summing up from now, if that's okay, please.
Thank you. I won't be 5 minutes.
Okay.
I support the Falmouth Town Council on the refusal of this application and support the points they have made. So I will just pick out some major issues. The neighbourhood plan, which is ready to go to referendum, so I hope it would carry some weight. It does not conform to policies DG1, DG2 and DG7, design in a conservation area and not the character of the area, which is spoken of by the Conservation Officer in his report. The height in the centre of the application is 6 stories high, which is higher than the neighbouring properties and overshadowing the new house most of the day. Yesterday, the Civic Society still object and the Conservation Committee object. I had 22 members of the Bayview residents objected, which have a membership of 199. I will say the Falmouth Town Council were unanimous in against. There is no reference to zero carbon usage reduction. And I just will finish by covering the height of the centre part of the building causes most concern with overmassing and unneighbourly. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Evans. Are there any questions for the divisional member, please? I can see 2 hands, Councillor Kenny and Councillor May, Vice Chairman.
Confirmed.
Thank you. Councillor Kenny, would you like to unmute, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Evans, it's probably an unfair question. I would have asked the town council representative this, but am I right in thinking that in terms of the neighbourhood plan, which I totally agree with you, it's so close to referendum that it has significant weight? Is this in character area 6, which is seaside resort or wooded suburbs? Is that the wrong question to ask you? I might ask the planning.
I think it's the wrong question because I think it's come under the conservation.
Yeah, well, that was my next question. I'm not actually clear where the conservation area is, and I'll probably be asking the planning officer to actually outline a diagram where the conservation area is. I think you prefer.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would really. I think we would have been gone to referendum if we didn't have the virus. We were ready in March, April, so we would have been roughly referendum time now.
Once you've got an agreed version after inspection, it should almost 100% wait.
Well, that's what I was hoping.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Councillor Kenny. Now we have Councillor May, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Evans, would you agree that your main objection are the centre blocks of this application, and that if they were reduced in size, would you say in principle you would be supportive of the scheme?
Well, that is part of the main objection of the area. It is quite the height there, and that is what they say in the conservation area. It will stand out in quite a few parts of Falmouth.
And could I ask that prior to it coming to committee, had you been in negotiations with the applicant, and had you approached him over this? I know they had reduced it by 1 floor. I'm not too sure what the dimensions of this floor were, whether it was a full floor or part of a floor. But had you asked him again to reduce by another floor or a certain amount of height?
I've been talking to the developer and Tim Marsh for about 18 months on this development, and I was hoping to come back, hope they would come down a bit more, but it's not been able to do.
And if I could just...
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Evans, did you still want to reply? Finish your reply?
No, it's so difficult waiting for people to speak.
Chairman, if I just could come back.
Yeah, of course.
Just going to the roof, and it's obviously going to have trees and stuff on it. Did you ask if there was a height on the actual trees that will grow up on the roof, on top of the roof?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't. No, I didn't on the tree height, no.
Okay, thanks ever so much.
Right. Thank you. Vice Chairman, I can see no more hands up. Can you?
No further hands raised, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to thank all public speakers for attending this virtual meeting today. I'd like to ask you all to leave the meeting now and remind you that you can follow the rest of the meeting on the live stream link, which is published on the agenda. Committee, we now move to questions of the planning officer. Are there questions, please?
3 indications, Chairman.
Thank you.
Councillor Thomas, Kenny and May.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Thomas, would you like to unmute, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I'd like to look at the issue of parking, Tim. I've got up on my second screen the travel plan guidance document, and the travel plan guidance document for Cornwall seems to be fairly broad in its statements, saying that basically parking spaces should be allocated for developments on individual sites rather than having a complete sort of plan for the whole of Cornwall. However, on one page it does say that in one space units when highly accessible. So I would say that from looking at other parts of the country where they allocate something like 1.4 spaces, this is something like 12 spaces actually short of actually the allocation that we should be thinking of. Would you agree with that question or that statement?
I don't agree, no. The provision, it is in a sustainable location, and as recognised by the highway officer in his advice, it's slightly over 1 space per unit. You've got 38, nearly 40 spaces altogether.
Is it 28 and 8, or have I missed something out?
It's 29 plus 8, so 37, yeah.
37, yes.
Yeah. So you've got 3 disabled spaces and 1 disabled space at the top. But the point is that there are some developments where you have less parking than that in town centre locations. I mean, as an example, the student development at Fishstrand Hill has minimal parking for 112 student apartments. Okay, student apartments. But the point is, no, but I'm trying to make the point about it's because it's a sustainable location. That's reflected in the highway officer's advice. He would probably accept a lower provision because it is in a sustainable location rather than seek a higher provision. And any reason for refusal on the lack of parking just wouldn't be tenable because if the policies are clear, where you have a sustainable location, you don't need so much car parking.
That's open to interpretation, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Kenny, would you like to unmute, please?
Thank you. I wasn't going to ask about this, but I suppose it would depend if the neighbourhood plan has got a policy on parking there, which I don't think they have, or maybe they do. I mean, first of all, wider question. I don't really know where the conservation area is. Have you got a diagram which shows us where the conservation is and how this particular place faces into it?
I have, yeah. Just bear with me. You should see one of the images that I put up at the start of the presentation. Right. The conservation area boundary is the purple dotted boundary. So you can see it's within towards the southern extremity of the conservation area boundary, but the railway is within at that point. So it's, yeah.
So the conservation goes up to the top of the photograph, does it?
It goes well beyond that, yeah.
Right. Returning to the photograph of the swimming pool.
Yeah, hang on, let me go back down to there. Yeah, it's a raised swimming pool, as you can see.
No, that's the one. So that is the original house, the nursing home on behind it, is it?
No, that's Seaview Court. That's on the other side of Seaview Road. So you're looking from the site towards Seaview Road. So really the proposed development is where I was standing, is behind me and to the right.
Right, so we don't have a picture of it from that direction.
Of the swimming pool, no.
Okay, fine. And finally, could you show me the latest version of the Pennants Road elevations? Because I know that's changed.
Yeah, can do. That's the CGI image, but the actual elevation is that one.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kenny. Councillor May, would you like to unmute, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I wondered, Tim, if you could just talk us through when the applicant decreased the floor level, not the floor level, the height level, I mean, and could you tell us what that height level was?
It's a full story, and in fact, if you look here, I can try and compare. I haven't got the 2 images up. This is the currently proposed elevation from Seaview Road, so you need to focus on that top bit there. I'll then go down to the at the end of the presentation, which I skipped through very quickly. You've got so that's how it was proposed. So you can see it's a full story that's been removed with those 2 apartments. You may recall that when I was explaining this scheme, I said that each block had 2 apartments on each level. So you've lost 2 apartments in that way by removing the block. Removing the floor, sorry.
What does that actually measure?
I don't have it to hand. I've got almost floor level. It looks to me it's about 3.5 meters.
And so each floor measures 3.5 meters.
Roughly, I wouldn't. I'm just going off reading on the plan, but there's roughly sort of 3 meters between each floor, which sounds about right when you think about the height of a room and allowing for the construction.
And can I ask you? I mean, you might not answer this question, but did you actually ask the applicant, taking on board Falmouth Town Council's comments and the local members' comments, if they would be minded to reduce another floor?
I did. The reduction was made in response to the comment, because there's been 2 rounds of consultation on this, the second one more focused. So when it came in August, the town council were objecting, as they still are, but on height, and the applicant responded to that by removing a story. And then I did the protocol, if you recall, and it's now what we're at committee because the town council maintained that they wanted it to be further reduced in height.
Because would you not agree that because they're not doing the traditional roof, that they have managed to get away with another story there? So it's another story on top of a story, really, isn't it?
Well, I think if you look at the...
Just yes or no is fine.
Well, I'm going to have to repeat the question because I think if it's got a flat roof, then obviously it's you haven't got the added height as if you were to have a pitch, if that's what you're saying. So you're equivalent to accommodation in the roof space of a pitched roof, I guess.
But across the board, it would be more space, wouldn't it?
Yes, where you have a flat roof.
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor May. Councillor Mike Thomas, you still have your hand up. Is that because you want...
No, thank you. So you're not used to having my hand, you see.
Thank you very much. No further questions according to me, Vice Chairman. Would you agree?
I agree, Chairman.
Thank you very much. In that case, we move into debate, please. Would you like to raise your hand if you wish to speak?
Councillor Kenny, Councillor Mary May.
Thank you. I think
I delayed, so I wouldn't be the first one. Obviously, I didn't delay long enough.
Right, Councillor Kenny.
I actually think the design of the estate is very nice. I just think it may be in the wrong place. I've got very big concerns with the aspect from Pennants Road because it's clearly very much higher than its available places. It is in a conservation area. The conservation officer is saying it's against it. You've got policy 7 that this application does not seem to make. So I will listen to what everybody else is going to say, but currently I think it's a good design in the wrong place.
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Councillor May.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I want to say thank you to the planning officer. I think he's given us a very good understanding of the application, lots of photos so that we can get our head round. However, as Councillor Kenny is saying, picking up on the conservation officer, what he's saying on page 72 on the last paragraph, you know, he's stating MPPF 189, 193 and 194. I would also like to hear what other people are saying, but at this point in time, I'm not minded to go along with the recommendation. Also, yeah, it sounds great that the applicant is giving just above 1 million for affordable contributions. However, if he was to rent out 4 of his apartments, he would get far less income over a period of lots of years. So I can see why he's doing it. And the sale contributions, well, you know, those are the new, that's the new agreement it's in. And if, you know, you've got to pay it, you've got to pay it. And I know we've heard from a resident who's not happy about the loss of light towards the end of the day. But I do think that, like a lot of us on this committee that have conservation areas, it is important that we take on the conservation area officer's advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor May. Councillor Simmons, I think I've got you next, and Councillor Jewell.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think I got a lot of sympathy for the owner of the new house with his overlooking and shadowing. I just feel he's been overlooked and really hasn't been listened to. But I must agree with Councillor Kenny. The height, I think, height is far too high, and the design is very nice, but it's completely in the wrong area. It's a conservation area. It's the NDP is right on the very next step of being adopted. So it's really a shame. But my biggest gripe is the parking. I know it's in a sustainable area, but 34 flats with 29 parking spaces. surely that should never be allowed in this day and age with so many people, with couples have got to work, they've got to have a car each, and obviously with this sort of planning they're not allowed to have any visitors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've now got Councillor Jewell, if you'd like to unmute your mic, and then followed by Councillor Mike Thomas.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Chairman. I think this application is completely out of place. I've never seen such an ugly thing. The policies of the neighbour plan, which now hold considerable weight, clearly state that it fails to demonstrate consistency with scale, design, character of the area, and to reinforce a sense of place and distinctiveness. The conservation area touches on it. The current height massing and specifications do not appear to heed the local vernacular. It would not look out of place in a city, but this is not a city. This does look out of place within this conservation area, and the conservation area's report is damning. Absolutely, categorically slates this application. I can't understand how the officers come to a conclusion. I mean, there's pages of it. 1, 2, 3, 4 pages of damning against this report. It doesn't follow any of it. It's way above the height of the, if it was the same level as the existing applicant, either side, that would be bad enough, but now they've gone a story higher, and because of the flat roof, they've gained literally 2 more floors. So this will not sit well in the conservation area at all. And I've got no support for this whatsoever at this present moment in time. I'll let someone else come in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jewell. I think I've now got Councillor Mike Thomas, John Thomas and John Fitter. Would you agree, Vice Chairman?
Yes, I do, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Thomas, please.
Thank you, Chair. I return to the points I raised with the officer and this use of the term sustainable. It's not wrong to have a car. It's not wrong to have an electric car or still a diesel or petrol car. And people, as mentioned by a number of other councillors, do need to travel. They do need to get to work. I like features of this design. I think it would look appropriate, as another councillor mentioned, in a city surrounding, and it does have a lot of feel to it, but I do not feel it is right for that location in its present form. And I would like to see a reduction in apartments numbers, and I'd like to see at least 2 spaces for a 2-bedroom apartment. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor John Thomas, would you like to unmute, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I tend to agree with most of the previous speakers, but in particular, I support greatly the views of Councillor Jewell. Though those points are what I'm going to raise. As he said, the conservation officer is quite damning of this application. It's not just a few lines. He's actually gone out of his way to study this application, and he's come back with his findings regarding the height, massing, design and specifications that do not appear to be the local vernacular. And I tend to support the majority of the previous speakers, Madam Chairman, and I don't like this one bit. Councillor Mike Thomas is obviously picking up the parking area, parking spaces, and I think, you know, it's in a sustainable area, or so the officer says, but I think there's still scope there for improvement on that. But as it stands, Madam Chairman, I just don't support this application at all, and that's not predetermination. That's how I feel at the moment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Fitter.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I too find it difficult to support.
Oh, hang on a minute, Councillor Fitter. For some reason, you're sounding 1,000,000 miles away.
Am I there now?
No, you're still sounding a long way away. Okay. I don't know if you...
Hang on, something's happened. Oh yes, I know what's happening. Now, is that better?
That's better.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, much better, Councillor Fitter.
Sorry, I apologise. My blooming plug came out of my machine because I have to wear an earphone for it, because otherwise... I really find the most interesting part of this report is the very detailed input by the conservation officer. it really does persuade me, as he's an independent person, that this development in this location is ill-suited. And he really does convince me that, you know, we would have to be very, very careful about allowing a development of this type to go into this location if we do not want to harm the conservation area. And I'm also conscious, and I have to say I was intrigued by the shading that the officer showed us in his chart earlier on. And I did form the view that it was quite a dramatic increase in shading for the people in the new house. And so, you know, I will not be supporting this application as set out, Madam Chairman, and thank you.
Thank you very much. I see 3 more hands. Councillor Mike Thomas, John Thomas and Councillor Dulcie Tudor. Would you agree, Vice Chairman?
We're down to 1 by the looks of it, Chairman.
Oh, right. Oh, sorry. It was people not having lowered hands. Right, Councillor Tudor.
Yeah, thank you. I really do like the design of this. I like the treat the basement parking way to treat the parking, and I like the landscaping and the green areas and the roofs. But I like this design. I'd really like this design if it was proposed for a city development. I don't think it's appropriate within the conservation area of a seaside town. And I also agree with what other councillors have said about the parking provision.
Thank you. So there's a lot of you in agreement, but no proposal.
Okay, Madam Chairman, because I'm the nearest member to this site, I've got no hesitation in recommending refusal on the grounds set out by the Conservation Area Officer on page 72. He says it is therefore recommended this submission proposal in its present design form may not be appropriate, and therefore the current proposal does not meet the requirements of the NPPF sections 189, 193, 194 and policy 24 of the Cornwall Structural Plan 2030. And I want to bring back in the plans for the Falmouth Neighbourhood Plan, because like we've said, the Falmouth Neighbourhood Plan team have worked tirelessly to get this to where it is. Unfortunately, we are where we are. If it had gone through referendum, it would have been 100%, but we can near enough say that this neighbourhood plan carries considerable weight now, and I think Tim Marsh will accept that. So on that proviso, I think it does fail on policy DG7, design and conservation areas. The proposal fails to demonstrate consistent with the scale, design and character of the area, and to reinforce the sense of place and local distinctness. Okay, I'll leave it with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Jewell. Now, I was going to ask for a seconder, but 3 hands are already up, and I'm assuming it is for that reason. Councillor May, your hand was actually the first one up. Were you wishing to second?
I'm happy to second, Chairman, but I don't know if Councillor Jewell thinks we should take on the unacceptable degree of overlooking to Newhouse and Weller Court, but maybe the officer can advise on that one.
Yes, I'll go to the planning officer. Now, as far as I can see, Vice Chairman, there's no further hands up for debate. Would you
agree? I agree.
Then can I go, please, to Matt Stevenson to comment on the wording that's been chosen by the proposer, please, and seconder.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, I think it is quite a succinct reason for refusal that the proposer read out there, and obviously you can add the neighbourhood plan policy referred to, i.e. policy 7, because obviously that is a material consideration and does carry weight at this time, and would do at the appeal, should it go to an appeal. So if you were going to refuse on those grounds, i.e. the impact on the setting of the conservation area, that would be a suitable reason for refusal.
So you're saying, Matt, impact on setting of conservation area, linked to DG7, yes? And
that's right.
What about Councillor May raised the point of overlooking?
Well, that hasn't been proposed, and obviously the case officer set out why it doesn't feel it does materially impact on the neighbour.
I'll go back to Councillor Jewell, Matt, but I'm asking you, would it be a reasonable part of the proposal?
Well, the advice of the case officer that is that they're not materially affected, so therefore, obviously, it wouldn't be a good reason for refusal.
No, right, thank you. Can I go back to Councillor Jewell then? Councillor Jewell, you've heard that bit of advice. How do you want to proceed with your proposal?
I think if Councillor May is in agreement, I think we have to remove the overlooking issue on the neighbour of the house. And there was touched on by earlier councillors about the parking. I don't think we can bring anything about parking into it because it is a sustainable location.
And yes, highways have no issue with it. So you're happy with the impact on the setting of the conservation area? Would that be correct?
Yes,
allowing the officer to link with the appropriate policies to that.
and with the nearly adopted Falmouth Neighbourhood Plan document DG7.
Right, thank you. Matt, is there anything further you wish to say?
No, as I say, I think if you have one good reason to refuse it, then you should stick to that rather than bring in other ones that are more dubious. So I think the reason for refusal as outlined by Councillor Jewell.
Right, I've got two hands raised before I go towards the vote.
Agreed.
First, Councillor Mike Thomas and then Tim Marsh. Councillor Thomas, would you like to unmute?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Two issues. It wasn't, as I recall, specifically overlook. It was the issue of the shadow was the particular concern, and my experience of these meetings and for committees to give their views, even if they are in disagreeing with the responsible officer, is that it's quite clear how we got to that decision. Now, I didn't mention the issue of the light because other councillors were going down that road, but I cannot see why we can't list a whole collection of reasons, because we can't come back to them again. We can't say, oh, well, what about so and so? And Councillor Jewell's issue and the officer's comment about sustainable, a lot of this is down to interpretation, and I would argue that the conflicts or the interpretation can go the other way in the travel plan. So all I'm saying is a query as to whether sufficient parking places have been allowed for people living in a rural county. Let's not forget that people don't necessarily stay in the area. They can walk to the shops or that, but they have to travel beyond the area other than using trains to get to destinations. And I repeat, it's not illegal to have a car. I do apologise.
Councillor Thomas, we all personally understand the point you're making, but I think the officer was trying to tell you that if highways have no objection, then you have very weak policy grounds. But let me, before I come back to Councillor Jewell on that, those 2 points, can I go to Matt Stevenson, please? The two things were mentioned there, shadowing and once again, the car parking.
Yeah, car parking, you don't have a policy that requires this development to have that number of parking spaces. So you'd be on well, you'd be very hard pressed to present any form of evidence or sustain that reason for refusal as appeal, because you don't have that policy. I mean, lots of people are of that view that should be more parking in these sort of schemes, but you don't have a policy that backs that. In terms of impact on neighbours, again, you have to provide evidence should you go to an appeal. Yeah, shadowing, impact on a neighbour, that's shadowing. One of these things can be shadowing.
Would that add to the case before I go back to Councillor?
Well, not if you haven't got evidence to show it, and we don't have the evidence, or I haven't seen any evidence at this meeting to say that they are materially affected. I'm sure there is some impact, but not to the degree of being materially adversely impacted, and therefore you can sustain that at an appeal. You can't just throw other reasons at it without showing that evidence, because that puts you at risk of costs should you ever go to an appeal. So you have to be very clear as to what the actual harm is and have evidence to show that. Whereas I think the actual reason that's on the table there is obviously opinions given by professional officers to back that up. There are policies there that obviously have to give great weight to impact on conservation areas. So I would suggest that is a reason for refusal, that we can have grounds to sustain an appeal. I wouldn't take the other two reasons.
Thank you. I'll go back to Councillor Jewell in a minute to see how he wants to contain that proposal. Tim Marsh, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to clarify that it's not really the setting, because it's within the conservation area. It's more the character of the conservation area. I think just to clarify that, I think that's what you meant. Character rather than setting. Right,
thank you. And I've still, thank you very much, Tim. Councillor Kenny, you wish to come back? Hello, Councillor.
Right, yeah, I'm coming. Yes, the point I think Councillor Thomas is making, the parking won't run, because although there's 70 mentions of parking in the neighbourhood plan, they don't actually have a policy in there which we can hang in on to. The impact on the neighbour is an interesting one. If you feel we haven't got enough, then we can't use it. But of course, if there was an appeal, the neighbour and Falmouth Town Council would be able to submit anything they want on the impact on themselves, and the inspector would look at it. So effectively, we wouldn't justify it, but everybody else would, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kenny. And Councillor Thomas, is your hand still up, or do you wish to come back again, Mike Thomas?
Yes, thank you. I'll take my hand down now, so I've got it out of the way eventually. All I'm doing, I would realise I won't win this one, but I'm just looking at the actual document, and it does clearly say 1 space per unit when highly accessible. And I would just say that's an interpretation. I've finished at that point. Thank you very much. I still support Councillor Jewell.
We probably all agree with you about the parking, Councillor Thomas, but unfortunately it's the rules we have to work under. Okay, thank you very much. So back to Councillor Jewell now. So Councillor Jewell, you've got impact of character of the conservation area linked to DG7 of the neighbourhood development plan. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I think we've got to keep it as Matt was saying, policy compliant, otherwise we'll be open to costs at appeal.
All right, thank you. And Councillor May, are you happy to proceed on that basis with your seconding?
Happy to support, Chairman.
Thank you very much. So we've got a proposal for refusal proposed by Councillor Jewell, seconded by Councillor May, on the basis of the words that you've now heard several times. Before we go to the vote, Emma, could you just confirm that all hands are down?
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that all hands are down.
Right, all those in favour of refusal, please show. Now we wait for the count.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm I have the names of those who are voting for.
Thank you very much. Those against, please now. Oh, can we first of all confirm all hands are down, Emma?
I'm still waiting for Councillors Tudor and Dyer to lower their hands. Right, I can confirm that Councillor Dyer needs to lower his hand. Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that all hands are lowered.
Thank you. Now all those against, please raise your hand.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Can I just clarify which way Councillor Mike Thomas is voting?
Apologies, that was an error.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I have the names of those voting against.
Thank you. Vice Chair, can you just lower your hand, please?
Apologies, sorry.
That's all right. We'll all get used to this in the end. And are there any abstentions, please?
No. Okay, thank you, Chairman. Can I just confirm with the legal officer that we have the same vote? I have 12 people voting in favour and 2 voting against with no abstentions.
Yeah, same with me, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm then that the motion to refuse the application has been carried by 12 votes in favour with 2 against and no abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very glad it wasn't another vote that I had to make. Right. Agenda item 5, any other business of urgency. There is no business of urgency, so I thank you all very much for what hasn't been the easiest meeting. Quite complicated, even if we've been in the chamber, but we got through it. So thank you all very much and see you next time round.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Well done, Madam Chair. It
Excellent
wasn't
job.
easy.
Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. Can I ask Sarah like a process question?
One second, I'm just going to ask for the live stream to be switched off and I'll